Chapter 10-12. The Wind Spirit region was the smallest of the 15 eastern regions, and it was relatively weak. That was why the region lord, Liang Feng, was the first to fight. If he could defeat Lin Muyu, the leader of the Dragon League, he would at least make a name for the Wind Spirit region. In the future, Liang Feng might be able to attract many God State experts to join the Wind Spirit region. The axe was surrounded by flames. Crazy Liang cultivated the law of fire, just like his fiery temper. However, people like him usually wouldn't survive more than 3 episodes in a TV series. Lin Muyu looked straight at Crazy Liang. Using the Spirit Pulse technique, she could sense that Crazy Liang's power was divided into 81 layers. This meant that Crazy Liang was an emperor god with 81 layers of grotto heaven. His comprehension of the law wasn't too strong, which also meant that Crazy Liang wouldn't be too strong. However, the rule of the imperial battle was that the leader of the new force must not be defeated within 30 minutes. Therefore, there was no need for Lin Muyu to defeat an opponent like Crazy Liang too quickly. Below the stage, the person that Lin Muyu was most afraid of was the deputy region lord of the heaven-devouring region, Zhao Qian. Among everyone, only Zhao Qian couldn't be seen through by Lin Muyu at all. This kind of person was the most difficult to deal with. Leader Lin, please enlighten me. Madman Liang gripped the battle axe with both hands and wore a vicious smile on his face. Since you've just arrived here, I'm sure you don't know how difficult it is to establish a sect in the primordial mystery realm. Today can be considered a test. You can talk about establishing a sect after you pass this test. Lin Muyu raised her hand and slowly pulled out the Xianyuan sword. The sword light was piercingly cold, and it glowed with a terrifying luster under the sunlight. She nodded and smiled but didn't say anything. I'm going to attack. Lunatic Liang had a fiery temperament. He rushed over after greeting Yi Shiwen. His battle axe chopped down from the sky. Flames soared and formed a series of flame ripples in the surroundings. It was a type of energy field that could control energy. Ordinary experts would not be able to dodge within the range of Lunatic Liang's energy field. However, it was different for Lin Muyu. Under the invisible elephant spell, he could almost perfectly see through every weak point of Lunatic Liang's domain. It was as if there was a safe zone outside of the lightning. Therefore, Lin Muyu stepped on the wave of flames and slid to the left almost perfectly, cleverly avoiding Lunatic Liang's axe. Puff! Although the axe was powerful, it didn't fall to the ground. Instead, it stopped less than 10 centimeters away from the stone slab. Crazy Liang had a good control over his strength. After missing his first strike, he immediately followed up with another sweep. The sharpness of the axe increased exponentially, turning into a flaming arc that cleaved towards Lin Muyu's position. Lin Muyu landed on the ground and quickly opened his left hand. With a buzzing sound, a golden gourd wall appeared in front of him. Immediately, the surrounding area lords were stunned. Some even laughed, their faces full of mockery. Most of the deities who cultivated in the primordial mystery realm were deities. Many of them had seen the existence of martial souls, and there were many who were born with martial souls in many planes. However, as one stepped into the deity realm, the martial souls became less and less useful. As such, most of the deities treated martial souls as insignificant tricks, and some even thought that they were just playing with them. However, Lin Muyu's martial soul was different. With a violent explosion, Crazy Liang's axe was perfectly repelled by the wall of the gourd. Crazy Liang's arms were numb, and he couldn't help but slide back a long distance. He looked at Lin Muyu with a face full of shock. The crowd below the stage was also stunned. Everyone seemed to have underestimated Lin Muyu and his martial soul. Interesting. There's someone like this in the Eastern Heavens realm. Fire Lion Region Lord Zhuang Fei sat firmly in his chair and twirled his beard with a smile. Looks like the Dragon League is not simple. The Domain Lord of the Gale Region, Du Xing, narrowed his eyes with a hint of coldness. The Deputy Domain Lord beside him whispered, Domain Lord, who exactly is this Lin Muyu? Du Xing shook his head. I don't know. The ancient mystery realm is isolated from the world. We don't know what happened outside. Perhaps Lin Muyu is already someone who can summon wind and rain in the 3 realms. We just don't know about it. And you have to be careful. In the Devouring Heaven region seat, the Deputy Region Lord Zhao Qian calmly watched Lin Muyu and Lunatic Liang fighting on the stage. He didn't say a word and only tapped his fingers rhythmically on the table beside him. In the host seat, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, and Shi Yan watched the fight nervously. They were all worried about Lin Muyu. The Dragon League's founding ceremony was a gathering of experts. With so many experts gathered in one place, whoever stood out here would also stand out in the 64 regions. Lin Muyu might face more challenges than expected. Buzz. The flames slashed across like blades, but they still only touched the tip of Lin Muyu's cloak. Lunatic Liang's every attack seemed to be extremely dangerous, but Lin Muyu could perfectly avoid danger every time. Moreover, Lin Muyu's counterattack was also very weak. Every attack from the Xinyuan sword was easily blocked by Lunatic Liang. He's clearly stalling for time. In the guest seat, a person suddenly slammed his fist on the table, stood up and shouted, "Lunatic Liang, come down. You're no match for him. He's just using you to delay Kaijian. Admit defeat and let someone else do it." Everyone looked over. The person who spoke had 2 scars on his face. He looked to be in his 40s, and there was a flag of the Falling Star region behind him. Obviously, he was the region lord of the Falling Star region, Xianxia, who had taken in Dongfang Yan. Xianxia and Dongfang Yan were good friends. Naturally, he would make things difficult for Lin Muyu here. On the stage, Lunatic Liang seemed to be a little annoyed. He slashed his battle axe and roared, "Lin Muyu, how dare you look down on me? If you dare to play tricks on me like this again, I'll make you look bad." The continuous attacks had already messed up Lunatic Liang's breathing. At this time, he could only use less than half of his strength. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu was calm and unruffled, as if nothing had happened. Seeing Lunatic Liang's axe coming at her, Lin Muyu used Falling Star steps and suddenly moved 1 meter horizontally at an unimaginable speed. Her long sword fell upside down, and the hilt of the sword caught the handle of Lunatic Liang's axe. Lin Muyu's control of power was brilliant. She lifted her foot and gently touched the tip of Lunatic Liang's foot. Her right hand suddenly swung out with his battle axe, and suddenly Lunatic Liang lost his balance. Buzz. Flames swirled in the air. Lunatic Liang wanted to forcibly stop his declining momentum in the air. Once he fell off the stage, it meant that he had failed the challenge. But how could Lin Muyu give him such a chance? From behind, she sent out a fierce palm, and a celestial image of all living beings appeared. Chaos of all living beings. Pang! There was a loud sound. This heavy force was extremely ingenious, and it just happened to crush Lunatic Liang's power of flying. In the next moment, this God Emperor powerhouse was like a mortal. His thick body fell onto the stone floor with a pung sound, and his face was covered in dirt. Lunatic Liang was defeated. Lunatic Liang suddenly sprang up from the ground, his face full of shame and anger. He had been humiliated in front of the leaders of all the forces in the 64 domains, and the entire Wind Spirit territory knew that their territory lord had been defeated. This was really humiliating. Lunatic Liang's face turned red. He picked up his battle axe and was about to go back into the arena to fight. Territory Lord Liang. Zhao Qian, the deputy territory lord of the heaven-devouring territory, who was sitting on the spectator stand, said, "You've lost. According to the rules of the imperial battle, if you fail the challenge, you can't go back into the arena. Please return to your seat and wait for others to challenge you." Lunatic Liang returned to his seat angrily. The God Realm experts of the Wind Spirit territory behind him looked at each other and didn't dare to speak. Lunatic Liang was a hot-tempered man, and there was nothing he wouldn't do if he was provoked into anger. However, after Lunatic Liang was defeated, the people sitting on the spectators' stand fell silent again. No one wanted to go back into the arena unless they thought their cultivation was much higher than Lunatic Liang's. A few seconds later, Zhuang Fei, the territory lord of the Fiery Lion territory, took a sip of his tea, looked in the direction of Xianxia, the territory lord of the Falling Star territory, and said with a smile, "I heard that territory lord Xianxia is Dongfang Yan's best friend. Now that Dongfang Yan's Raging Wind territory has been destroyed by the Dragon League, Do you want to watch your best friend's enemy pass the imperial battle? As he spoke, Zhuang Fei smiled and said, "The fiery lion territory isn't picking fights. We're just taking things as they are. If my friend's force is destroyed, I won't stand by and do nothing. I heard that Domain Lord Xianxia has practiced the amazing butterfly knife technique. Could it be that this butterfly knife technique is not used to kill people, but to slaughter pigs and chickens?" You? Xianxia's face was livid. A few experts from the Falling Star territory frowned and tried to persuade him. It wasn't wise to step forward at this time. However, Xianxia still stood up steadily and said, "Territory Lord Zhuang, you're exaggerating. Although I'm not talented, I'm a man who distinguishes between public and private interests. Since all the other territory lords don't dare to go up to the imperial battle, Xianxia will be bold enough to try." As he spoke, he grabbed the two lancets beside him, stepped on the wind, and flew up to the arena. Everyone cheered in unison. Xianxia was the territory lord of the Falling Star territory, and his cultivation was at the 87th Grotto Heaven realm. He was one of the strongest experts in the 11 southern regions. It was expected that Xianxia would challenge Lin Muyu, the new leader of the southern forces. Lancet's butterfly knife skill. Known for his speed, it was said that Xianxia could slash out nearly 20 times in a second. No one knew if this was true or not, because Xianxia spent most of his time in seclusion and did not spar with anyone. Those who knew of his saber techniques were all dead. Xianxia smiled politely and said, "Alliance leader Lin, please enlighten me." Lin Muyu looked at him deeply. Today's opponents were all top-notch experts, and she couldn't underestimate any of them. She cupped her fists and said, "Please enlighten me." As soon as she finished speaking, Xianxia's figure disappeared. How fast was that? Lin Muyu knew where he was. She suddenly lifted her battle boots from the ground and looked down. She saw that the stone slab she had been standing on had been chopped into pieces by a flurry of knives. Sharp wind blade cyclones danced wildly, cutting deep grooves on the stone slab. Xianxia's speed was really fast. Chapter 1013. Clang. The Xianyuan sword was unsheathed. When Lin Muyu looked down, she saw a blurry silhouette coming from the whirlwind at high speed. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of her. The moment Lin Muyu unsheathed her sword, she slashed out 4 times. Milky white air currents danced around the lancet like dancing butterflies. No wonder this sword technique was called the butterfly blade. Lin Muyu didn't have time to use any techniques, so she immediately slashed out with the blade aimed at Xianxia's throat. If Xianxia persisted in slashing out these few times, Lin Muyu's spirit wall would be damaged, but the Xianyuan sword would be enough to kill Xianxia. Huh? Xianxia was shocked. He had never encountered such a fighting style since his debut. She didn't let go at all and fought attack with attack. However, this seemed to hit the weakness of the butterfly blade technique. The reason why the butterfly blade technique could be so fast was because it gave up on defense. Xianxia had defeated many people, but they were all too busy blocking the lightning-fast blade technique. The more they blocked, the faster they lost. This was a matter of course. However, Lin Muyu didn't block and saw through the weakness of the butterfly blade technique. Xianxia hurriedly withdrew his attack. His body spun in the wind and disappeared again. Practitioners of the law of wind were extraordinarily fast. This kind of movement speed was at least 3 to 5 times that of Feng Jixing. Even Lin Muyu couldn't keep track of it with the naked eye. The wind was so strong that it was almost impossible to open one's eyes. Lin Muyu stood in the air and shouted decisively, "All the phenomena in the world, listen to my command." Immediately, the elephant formless domain expanded rapidly. Golden elephant wheels appeared in Lin Muyu's palm. "Oh, what's that?" On the ground, a group of domain lords looked up. "Is it a spirit wheel?" Zhuang Fei, the domain lord of the Fire Lion region, asked in surprise. Zhao Qian, the deputy domain master of the heaven-devouring domain, smiled faintly. But the characteristics of her power are similar to that of a spirit wheel. Interesting. This Lin Muyu is really interesting. Feng Zhanlin and Machi Lin also raised their heads to look at the sky, their faces full of admiration. Although Lin Muyu's strength was low, Her martial arts cultivation was shockingly high. In the air, Lin Muyu had already thrown the elephant wheel into the void. Bang! A muffled sound exploded in the invisible wind, like a muffled thunder exploding. Following that, another 7 or 8 elephant wheels were sent out, and the explosions in the air became more and more frequent. Everyone could only see the purple ripples created by the collision of divine powers in the air, but they could not see what was happening. Swish, swish, Lin Muyu's heart suddenly sank. An inexplicable premonition arose in her heart. She immediately raised her sword and slashed downwards. Sure enough, Xianxia's figure appeared in the gale. His 2 lancet blades were brandished, and the deadly knife Qi attacked. However, it was locked on by Lin Muyu's aura and directly shattered. Bang! The Xianyuan sword directly shook the lancet blades for the first time, activating the light of the 3 luminaries' all-calamity, and instantly repelled her opponent. Although Xianxia's cultivation in the law of wind was very shocking, he focused too much on speed and neglected power. As a result, Lin Muyu's 3rd luminaries was able to directly repel him. Just as Xianxian disappeared in the gale, a thought popped up in Lin Muyu's mind again. This time, without thinking, she backhanded her sword and slashed behind her. Clang! It hit again. The Xianyuan sword collided heavily with the lancet blades. Lin Muyu was ecstatic. That sudden, prophetic thought was the ability to foresee? The ability of the 70 grotto heavens was too useful. It was just that sometimes it could foresee and sometimes it couldn't. It seemed like she still had to practice hard. Xianxian's face was also full of shock. This is impossible. But the impossible had already happened. Lin Muyu's dense attacks had already landed. In almost 5 seconds, the Xianyuan sword and the butterfly blades had already clashed more than 10 times, and Xianxian fell to the ground from the impact. She raised her palm, and dozens of elephant wheels fell with a loud bang. Under the pressure of the elephant wheel's domain, Xianxian felt as if there was a huge mountain on his head. How could he still maintain flying in the air? His feet landed with a bang, and he held the butterfly blades with both hands to forcibly lift this invisible mountain. He could be considered a man of iron bones to be able to catch dozens of elephant wheels in an instant. Unfortunately, when Xianxian looked down at his feet, he felt a chill in his heart. He had landed, and he had landed in an area outside the high platform. Xianxian was defeated. Lin Muyu landed slowly and smiled. Territory Lord Zheng, thank you for letting me win. Xianxian's face was ashen. He didn't really lose, but the trauma in his heart was far heavier than this. His butterfly blade technique was actually broken by someone he had only met for the first time. What a huge blow it was. I lost. Xianxian bowed to Lin Muyu and then shakily walked back to his seat. Below the platform, the territory lords fell silent again. Zhuang Fei glanced at the incense stick and said, "There's not much time left. Who else wants to challenge the leader of the Dragon League? Territory Lord Nangong Lai, don't you like to challenge strong enemies? Why don't you try, Territory Lord Nangong?" The Falling Star Territory and the Fengling Territory both lost. Perhaps the Mystic Heaven Territory can save the face of the 64 territories. Nangong Lai crossed his arms and smiled faintly. If you want to save face, do it yourself. Why do you need me to do it? I'm not in a good mood today, and I don't want to fight. Territory Lord Zhuang, if you think the leader of the Dragon League is too eye-catching, why don't you try it yourself? We also want to see what realm the Territory Lord of the Fiery Lion Territory has reached. You? Zhuang Fei was exasperated. Nangong Lai was too unreasonable. Although Zhuang Fei was a perfect celestial emperor with 90 grotto heavens, he was still inexperienced. On the other hand, Nangong Lai of the Mystic Heaven Territory had 92 grotto heavens, Du Xing of the Gale Wind Territory had 91 grotto heavens, and Zhao Qian of the Heaven Devouring Territory had 93 grotto heavens. They were all perfect celestial emperors, and their power and laws needed to be in harmony. Although they were all perfect celestial emperors, the power they could exert might be worlds apart. Therefore, Zhuang Fei didn't dare to be careless, which was also why he didn't challenge them. The incense stick is about to burn out. Du Xing coughed and said, Territory Lord of the Fiery Lion Territory, do you really not want to experience the power of the leader of the Dragon League? Why don't you, Territory Lord Du Xing? Zhuang Fei asked. Du Xing laughed and said, my Gale Wind Territory is just a small territory in the northern snowfield. It's hard for us to enter the Grand Hall. Why should we fight here? But the Fiery Lion Territory is in the western region, and it's close to the Dragon League. Territory Lord, why don't you take this chance to experience the power of the leader of the Dragon League? Are you looking for another good opportunity? When he said, another good opportunity, he purposely emphasized it. Obviously, if they didn't fight here, the next time they fought, it would most likely be a life-and-death battle. Everyone knew the process of the rise of the Dragon League. First, they conquered the Sparrow Spirit Territory, then the Golden Dragon Territory, then the Sky Foothill Territory, and finally the Raging Fire Territory. The development of the Dragon League was a process of continuous conquest. If they didn't fight now, the next time they fought would be the time for the Dragon League to conquer the Fiery Lion Territory. The thing that Zhuang Fei feared the most was right. His expression was extremely ugly. He clenched his fists and sat there without saying a word. After a few seconds, he raised his head and looked at the people from the Heaven-Devouring Territory. The Heaven-Devouring Territory was the strongest territory in the 64 territories. At this moment, Zhuang Fei seemed to have the intention of asking the leader of the Heaven-Devouring Territory for a lesson. Coincidentally, Zhao Qian also looked at Zhuang Fei and tacitly agreed. He smiled and said, victory and defeat are common, not to mention a sparring match. It's not a bad thing for Territory Lord Zhuang to take this rare opportunity to spar with the leader of the Dragon League. Don't think too much. The incense is about to burn out. All right then. Zhuang Fei suddenly stood up and made a grabbing motion in the air with one hand. A dazzling long spear appeared in his hand. He smiled and said, then let the Fiery Lion Territory experience the power of Alliance Lord Lin. He leaped onto the high platform. The Fire Lion spear in his hand glowed with a dazzling light. The power of flames was extremely vigorous. In terms of the intensity of the flames, Zhuang Fei was probably way above Lunatic Liang. Lin Muyu knew that he was a great perfection divine emperor and did not dare to look down on him. He held his sword and said humbly, Territory Lord, please enlighten me. Enlighten me. Zhuang Fei bellowed. He straightened his Fire Lion spear and stabbed forward. The flames around the tip of the spear blossomed like an endless fire net. This attack was not as simple as it looked. The entire space seemed to be locked by the power of the flames that blossomed from the tip of the spear, making it impossible for anyone to dodge. Lin Muyu's heart sank. Zhuang Fei's power was indeed not to be underestimated. Every phenomenon in the world, listen to my command. Chanting silently, Lin Muyu's divine power surged. With his body as the core, a strong wind blew. This time, the invisible elephant technique made use of the natural wind. Wind blades swept in all directions like wind saws and collided with the fire domain that Zhuang Fei had condensed. At the same time, the Xianyuan sword turned into a cold radiance and swung forward. Clang! The blade of the sword and the tip of the spear collided and another wave of cold radiance spread out. An inch longer, an inch stronger. Zhuang Fei brandished the spear and unleashed another fierce attack. Lin Muyu quickly dodged to the side. However, he was unable to completely avoid the impact of the flames. The divine wall on his neck had already let out a sizzling sound. Zhuang Fei's divine power seemed to have penetrated into his skin through every pore, bringing with it a burning sensation. Swoosh! The spear entangled the blade of the sword like a python. Zhuang Fei's face was already filled with pride. Although he was a celestial the arch expert, Zhuang Fei was still very diligent in his spear skills. His spear skills and absolute divine power had forged his position as the strongest expert in the western region of the 64 regions. However, a scene that Zhuang Fei did not expect happened. Lin Muyu's wrist turned rhythmically, following which, a mighty force surged from the Xianyuan sword. But not only did it break away from the Fire Lion spear, but it also forced Zhuang Fei to take a few steps back. This attack was the thunderclap style of the dragon taming spear technique. Although the power was reduced by several folds using the Xianyuan sword, it was still enough to force back the Fire Lion Spear. Zhuang Fei was amazed. This time, he had to take Lin Muyu seriously. She had just stepped into the 70th Celestial the Arch Realm. Chapter 1014. Let's try this. Zhuang Fei brandished his long spear as a fire lion constellation rapidly manifested at the tip of the spear, causing its might to increase explosively. Fiery light shot towards Lin Muyu, and the raging flame domain transformed into a gigantic whirlpool, as though it wanted to destroy everything. The spectators on the ground couldn't help but be shocked, and even Feng Zhanlin and the rest had no choice but to unleash their domains to defend against the impact of the flames. The entire Great Hall of the Dragon City trembled unceasingly. Zhuang Fei was serious. Meeting her match, Lin Muyu's heart was not filled with fear, but excitement. He suddenly shook his arms, and the Xianyuan sword shone brightly. Golden wheels quickly appeared behind him, stacking on top of each other. Nearly 1,000 elephant wheels rapidly gathered. This was the first time he made a move since he had mastered the shapeless elephant spell to the 4th layer of the 1,000 elephants, God-destroying elephants. With a wave of the blade, countless elephant wheels rushed forward. Each elephant will contain the tyrannical power of nature, and its destructive power could be imagined. After waving these elephant wheels, more than half of the divine power in Lin Muyu's body seemed to have been absorbed. She was showing signs of exhaustion, and she couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Holding the Fire Lion Spear, Zhuang Fei felt that the elephant wheels in front of him were like a tribulation of heaven and earth. He had to face them head-on, and the only thing he could deal with was the divine wheels. Suddenly throwing the Fire Lion Spear to the ground, Zhuang Fei crossed his palms. His body was still trembling, and countless divine power transformed into huge divine wheels in the air, constantly blocking Lin Muyu's elephant wheels. Bang, bang, bang. The world was overshadowed, and there was only the sound of the collision between the divine wheel and the elephant wheel in the sky. Powerful shock waves swept across the sky and the earth, accompanied by the screams of women. Countless maids in Dragon City were so scared that they retreated with pale faces. The earth also trembled, and even cracks began to appear on it. Feng Zhanlin hurriedly shouted, "Region Lord Zhuang, Lin General, stop fighting. If you continue, Dragon City will be destroyed." However, no one could hear his words amidst the raging winds and raging flames. Lin Muyu and Zhuang Fei's fists had already collided with each other. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of blows. Every time they collided, there would be an explosion of power. It was extremely frightening. With a buzzing sound, cracks began to appear on the jade steps of the main hall, and they continued to expand. Everyone's horizons were broadened. One was a grand perfection god emperor of the western region, and the other was the newly risen Dragon City master. The battle between the two of them was so destructive. Indeed, there were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the prehistoric mystery realm. Feng Zhanlin hurriedly turned to the seat of the heaven-devouring region, cupped his fists, and said, "Dragon City has just been built. I'm afraid it can't withstand such a torment. Deputy Region Lord Zhao Qian, please stop the battle between the two. This imperial battle should end here. The heaven cauldron of the domain castle is about to break. This is not as simple as 1 or 2 lives." Zhao Qian frowned. In fact, as a spectator, he did not mind the commotion. But since Feng Zhanlin had said so, the heaven-devouring region, as the leader of the 64 domains, naturally had no reason to stand aside. More importantly, the heaven-devouring region's intervention was more likely to resolve the battle between the south and west domains. It gave off a sense of superiority and made the 64 domains respect the heaven-devouring region even more. In the next moment, Zhao Qian had already disappeared from his seat. All that was left was wisps of white mist that looked like auspicious clouds. Zhao Qian's voice rang out in the air. "Region Lord Zhuang, Alliance Leader Lin, let's stop here. Let's just treat this Imperial Palace battle as a draw." In the midst of the intense battle, the power of the two was like an arrow knocked on a bowstring. The dazzling Xinyuan sword rapidly slashed at Zhuang Fei's waist blade. Raging flames and raging winds swept. The battle was very tense. Both of you stop. A vast divine power invaded. It was as if a pair of giant arms had appeared in the air, grabbing Zhuang Fei's waist blade with one hand and Lin Muyu's Xinyuan sword with the other. Zhao Qian stood in the air. Su Ran shook slightly, like a god descending to the earth. He shouted in a low voice, "This is the end." Zhuang Fei felt that his waist blade could no longer slash down, and his body seemed to be restrained by the power. Lin Muyu had fought several people consecutively, and had also used up a lot of energy. Moreover, the strength of her divine power was far inferior to Zhao Qian's. For a moment, the Xinyuan sword trembled slightly in the air, unable to slash down. This time, Zhao Qian had earned a lot of face for the heaven-devouring region. Zhuang Fei gritted his teeth and retracted his strength. Lin Muyu also returned the Xinyuan sword to its sheath. In the air, the smoke dissipated, and the ripples caused by the battle also stopped. On the contrary, the ground was a mess. Countless chrysanthemums had been blown to the ground. Even the servant army had formed a shield formation to resist the impact of the airflow. The three of them slowly landed on the stage. Zhao Qian smiled and said, "The leader of the Dragon League is indeed extraordinary. It's really not easy to have such a celestial being cultivation at such a young age." The cultivation of Region Lord Zhuang of the Fiery Lion region is also unfathomable. In my opinion, why don't we call this a draw? Your two families still have to get along in the future. Don't hurt the harmony. Zhuang Fei also did not want to offend the heaven-devouring region. He pulled out the Fire Lion spear from the stone brick and cupped his hands. "Then I will listen to Deputy Region Lord Zhao Qian's arrangement." Lin Muyu said, "So, does the Dragon League pass the challenge of the Imperial Palace battle?" Zhao Qian turned to look at the incense burner, and saw that the incense had burned out with the help of the wind. He smiled and said, "Of course. From now on, the Dragon League is a new member of the 64 domains. I hope that the Dragon League can take on the responsibility of eliminating the strong and helping the weak, and maintaining peace in the 64 domains." As he spoke, Zhao Qian revealed a meaningful smile and said, "Alliance leader Lin, you should have heard of this saying. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. The rule of the 64 domains has always been that whoever wants to be the strongest must pay the price in blood. As the guardian of the middle region, the heaven-devouring region will definitely protect the rules of the 64 domains by example." Lin Muyu naturally knew what Zhao Qian was implying. She smiled and said, "Don't worry, Deputy Region Lord. The Dragon League has always been one that does not offend us, and we, the Dragon League, only take care of those who try to provoke us. After all, the people of the Dragon League will leave the primordial mystery land one day and obtain eternal life." Zhao Qian could not help but be taken aback. He then laughed and said, "I almost forgot that Alliance leader Lin is from the East Heaven realm. However, it will not be easy for Alliance leader Lin to bring so many gods from the primordial mystery land to the god realm to enjoy eternal life. At least from what I know." His tone softened a little. After all, eternal life was too tempting for the godly state experts in the primordial mystery land. Let alone the people of the Dragon League, even the people of the Fiery Lion region and the Mystic Heaven region could not help but raise their eyebrows. If Lin Muyu knew the way to leave the primordial mystery land and go to the god realm, he would be the savior of this world. Lin Muyu smiled and cupped her fists. "Actually, I do not know how to leave the primordial mystery land at the moment, but since I am here, there must be a way out. What do you think, Deputy Region Lord?" "Maybe." Zhao Qian wore a smile on his face, but in his heart he was almost cursing. Lin Muyu's words at the founding ceremony of the Dragon League was simply buying people's hearts. How many people would submit to the Dragon League and Lin Muyu just for the sake of eternal life? Then, the ceremony is about to begin. Distinguished guests, please prepare to enter the banquet. Feng Zhan Lin and Mochi Lin invited everyone to enter the banquet. Zhao Qian led a dozen people of the devouring heaven realm straight to Qin Yin and the others. When they arrived in front of Shiyen, Zhao Qian smiled politely and cupped his fists. Are you Lord Blazing Angel Shi Yan? Shi Yan nodded and smiled but did not speak. Zhao Qian's spiritual sense kept probing Shi Yan's surroundings, but he could not see through Shi Yan's strength. He only felt that the divine power of light was very vast and penetrating. Suddenly, he felt very uncertain. Last time, when the 99 heavenly abode god emperor called Ziyao came, he almost turned the 64 domains upside down. He destroyed the Spirit Wind domain and Ancient Desolation domain single-handedly. What kind of cultivation was that? Even after the Devouring Heaven realm went there, Ziyao was not afraid at all, and almost fought with the domain lord of the Devouring Heaven realm, City Yun. Thinking of this, Zhao Qian could not help but shiver. Now, another unfathomable blazing angel had come to the 64 domains. Shi Yan's cultivation might not be weaker than Ziyao's, and she was even stronger in terms of attack. At this moment, what Zhao Qian was most worried about was not Lin Muyu, but Shi Yan's existence. Deputy Domain Lord Zhao, have you seen enough? Shi Yan smiled slightly. There. Zhao Qian hurriedly cupped his hands. This junior has never seen a person like Lord Shi Yan. I have lost my composure and offended you. Please forgive me. It's all right. Deputy Domain Lord, please take your seat. Yes, thank you. As he spoke, Zhao Qian's gaze swept over Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi, and he was immediately stunned. Although their cultivation was not as high as Shi Yan's, their appearance was not inferior to Shi Yan's. Moreover, Zhao Qian actually felt 2 faint waves of overgod's power. He could not help but feel a little puzzled. 2 overgods appearing in the same place? This was too ridiculous. At this moment, Zhao Qian's gaze swept over Fuzhu. Fuzhu had already changed into a scholarly robe. Coupled with his handsome appearance, he was very eye-catching. He did not care about the Devouring Heaven territory. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Kid, what are you looking at? Even if you look at me again, I am still 100,000 times more handsome than you. Try looking again, try looking again." Zhao Qian was stunned. Who is this beast? He was too arrogant. However, seeing that he was with Shi Yan, Qin Yin, and the other beauties, he did not say anything. With a livid expression, he led the group of Devouring Heaven territory disciples into the main hall to take their seats. At this moment, Lin Muyu walked over and glared at Fuzhu. Why are you so arrogant? Are you going to clean up after offending the Devouring Heaven territory? Don't eat lunch. Later, Xiaoxi will prepare a dry bun for him and summon some water to drink. That will be enough. Fuzhu had a pleading look on his face. Don't, master. This little beast wants to eat fish and meat, fresh seafood. Chapter 10-15. The ceremony was a big day for the Dragon League, so almost all the best things were offered. When Lin Muyu sat at the host's seat, he was shocked by the table of delicacies that he had never seen before. He saw a roasted suckling pig that looked like a donkey, and grapes that looked like a woman's breasts. Feng Zhanlin explained, "That is a spiritual donkey pig, which we hunted in the mountains after much difficulty. This kind of wild boar can run like lightning, and its speed is astonishing. It is even comparable to the Starfall Domain Master's movement technique. As for that grape, it is called milk grape. It is said that it has a very good effect of nourishing the skin." Lin Muyu glanced at him, feeling that Feng Zhanlin had also learned bad things. The people at Lin Muyu's table were basically all nobles. Zhao Qian of the Devouring Heaven domain, Zhuang Fei of the Fiery Lion domain, Nangong Lai of the Mystic Heaven domain, and Du Xing of the Gale domain were all high-ranking figures among the 64 domains. In addition, there were Shi Yan, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, and the 2 domain lords of the Dragon League. Therefore, everyone had to be careful with their words and actions. Nangong Lai's gaze fell onto a plate of fruits and he said, "This? Could it be the legendary Dragon Claw Sweet Taro?" "That's right, Domain Lord Nangong has a good eye." Mochi Lin smiled. "Dragon Claw Sweet Potato is very good for cleansing the meridians. It is a pity that there are less than 100 of them in Dragon City's garden. This time, we have picked 20 of them for the Domain Lords to taste. Consider it our Dragon League's hospitality as a host." Zhao Qian was slightly stunned. Dragon claw sweet potato was indeed good stuff. Because it grew on trees, it would fall to the ground once it was ripe, and would rot quickly after falling to the ground. Therefore, there had to be people guarding it. Ripe dragon claw sweet potato had to be stored in an ice cellar, or it would lose its spiritual power. A well-preserved dragon claw sweet potato would cost at least 10,000 gold coins, and Dragon City actually used it to entertain guests. Today, not only will there be delicious food, but there will also be good wine. Feng Zhanlin gave the guard a look. Very quickly, a few maids walked over with wine jugs. Before they poured the wine, they could already smell the mellow aroma. Instantly, Nangong Lai's eyes lit up. What wine is this? It's so fragrant. There's even the smell of peace heart berry in the fragrance. Could it be the legendary 10,000 years drunk? Region Lord Nangong has a good nose. Qin Yin couldn't help but smile. This is indeed 10,000 years intoxication. We only found 2 jars in the cellar of Dragon City. Wow, it's really 10,000 years intoxication? Nangong Lai's face was flushed with excitement as he said, "It said that 1,000 caddies of peace heart berries need to be fermented for 1,000 years before one can brew an authentic 10,000-year drunk. I've only heard of it but never tasted it. This Dragon City is really a good place. There are all kinds of treasures." Smiling, Feng Zhanlin said, "If you think Dragon City is good, why don't you join us with the realm of Mystic Heaven?" He started to pull people over. However, Nangong Lai was a 92nd level Grotto Heaven Great Perfection Celestial Emperor, so it was not that easy to pull him down. He waved his hand and smiled. "Let's talk about this after we drink." The color of 10 millennia intoxication was light blue, but it was delicious and fragrant. When it was poured into the cup, it actually gave off a faint icy aura. Even Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, and Shi Yan, who didn't drink much, couldn't help but want to taste this legendary treasure. Speaking of which, it was also thanks to Dongfang Yen. If Dongfang Yen hadn't fled in a hurry and didn't take anything with him, Dragon City wouldn't have so many treasures, and they wouldn't have the luck to enjoy such a treasure. When they began to enjoy the 10 millennia intoxication, a terrifying gaze shot over from not far away. It was Xianxia's gaze. Xianxia and Dongfang Yen were old friends, so he naturally knew about the existence of 10 millennia intoxication. Now that Lin Muyu and the others took out 10 millennia intoxication to entertain Zhao Qian, Nangong Lai, and the others, Xianxia probably wanted to kill them. However, there were so many experts from the 64 domains here today, so Xianxia didn't dare to cause any trouble. During the banquet, Du Xing's attitude towards Lin Muyu was very good. After all, she was a force from the north, and was separated from the Dragon League by the entire Middle Territory. Therefore, based on the principle of befriending distant forces, there was no need to offend her. Because of this, so many people challenged Lin Muyu, but Du Xing didn't move at all. Lin Muyu saw this, but she knew very well that Du Xing was a smart man, probably much smarter than all the domain lords present. He understood what it meant to size up the situation. On the other hand, Zhuang Fei, Lunatic Liang and the others were far behind. As for Zhao Qian, he was actually very arrogant. He looked down on the other forces from the bottom of his heart, and in his eyes, there was only the devouring heaven domain. The banquet lasted for 2 days, and on the 3rd day, people from the major forces were sent away. At this point, the Dragon League was established, and the 64 domains began to stir. At the same time, undercurrents were also surging in the Shattered Cauldron realm. Mingshan Province, the southernmost province of the Qin Empire, had Xiangyang City as its economic, political, and military center. Mingshan Province's main industries were fishing, hunting, and farming. There were many mountains and rivers, and the people were rich. Therefore, the empire didn't send many troops to Mingshan Province. The entire Mingshan Province was 3 times the size of Lingnan Province, but it only had a measly 40,000 troops. Most of them were new troops, and the commander was once the god of war, and now the commander of the Mingshan Province's garrison, Xianxia. At night, the governor's mansion was quiet. In the huge office, there was a several-meter-long desk, and Xianxia was wearing a general's robe, carefully looking at the map under the candlelight. Dong dong. An old voice came from outside the door. Master Yu, you haven't slept yet? Xianxia raised his head. Oh, it's General Lu. Come in. An old general walked in shakily. His face was old, but his spirit was still hale and hearty. He was one of the deputy commanders of the Mingshan garrison, Lu Yongchang. Lu Yongchang joined the army early and had always been in the local army, but he had also represented the Iha country's army to fight against the devil race. He could be considered a meritorious minister of the empire, and now he had become Xiangyu's right-hand man. Under the candlelight, Lu Yongchang looked at the map and said, Master Yu, you have been looking at the map for a day. Have you figured anything out? How many scouts have we sent to Nanman? A total of 20 people. How many have returned? Not yet. Lu Yongchang seemed a little surprised and said, they have just set off for less than a month. It will take a month to reach the depths of Nanman and another month to return. Master Yu seems to be worried that it is too early? Xianxia smiled faintly, took out a stack of documents from the drawer at the side, and gently placed it on the table. General, look at this. What is this? This is the annual reconnaissance report of Nanman. Basically, all the scouts will report back within a month because they will not really enter the depths of Nanman. But this year, a month has passed, and none of these people actually came back to hand in the order. This really makes me feel a little strange. Lu Yongchang could not help but laugh. The south is a barren land. Other than birds and beasts, there is nothing else. Mingshan province's documents pile up like a mountain every day, and Master Yu does not care about so many important matters. Instead, you care about the small matter of the scouts. This is really inconceivable. Perhaps, this group of lazy fools is drinking in some tavern. Xiangyu's eyes lit up. General, we have a heavy responsibility, so we must be careful. Otherwise, wouldn't we be letting down the emperor? Moreover, I will not let go of such details. Immediately pass down my order, send more people to the Nanman wastelands to scout and investigate. Yes, I will immediately send another 100 people. No. Xianxia waved his hand. 100 people is far from enough. Send another 1,000 people. Every 100 people will form a team. Give them enough dry rations and fast horses. Pass down my order. They must explore the Nanman wastelands within a month and only return after confirming that there are no accidents. Yes, this subordinate will do it now. Lu Yongchang closed the door, leaving only the cold wind swirling in the room. Xianxia could not help but shiver. Ever since Tang Wei died, he had not had a woman by his side for a long time. Although he was a god, he was still a human. How could he withstand so many years of loneliness? At the thought of women, Xianxia could not help but raise his head and lie on the chair. What was a woman? To him, they were probably nothing. Now, he only wanted to guard the empire's south and ensure that nothing went wrong. Otherwise, if something went wrong in the south, the imperial capital was bound to take action. Although Xianxia and Feng Jixing were not of the same bloodline, they were still imperial great generals. They had fought for more than a decade in exchange for today's peace. Xianxia was too worried about losing it again. A corner of the crystal on the window suddenly cracked. A cold wind rushed in and instantly blew out the candle. Buzz! Xianxia bellowed and pulled out his sword. The sword was enveloped in raging flames, illuminating the entire room. But there was nothing, just that the window had been in disrepair for many years. Xianxia couldn't help but feel a little dejected. A true famed general was tired of war, but he also hoped that the flames of war would reignite in his bones. Xianxia was exactly like this. In the dense forests of the south, well-trained soldiers were silently making their way through the forest. The banner of the Blackstone Empire could faintly be seen fluttering in the wind. In addition, the low roars of dragons could be heard in the sky. Within the army, under the banner of the commander, Lu Yen of the Sea and Mountain Army was the undisputed commander. He rode a majestic white warhorse as he slowly followed the army. Suddenly, a rider galloped over. It was a scout. Lord Commander, we've discovered a village up ahead. We've ascertained that it does not belong to the tribes of the south. How should we deal with it? Lu Yan's voice was somewhat gloomy. Kill them all. On the side, Bailey Yen frowned. Lu Yen looked at him. What? Does the military advisor think that I'm doing something wrong? Bailey Yen shook his head. No, it's the exact opposite. Commander, you're doing the right thing. Our army must march silently. Otherwise, how can we achieve the effect of a surprise attack? Right? How are the Iha Empire's troops? Has Qin Yi, that old fellow, died of illness? Not yet. They're on our left. But don't worry, Commander. They're just a few tens of thousands of soldiers. Their battle prowess is low, and they're nothing to worry about. Speed up the march. We'll reach the Bright Mountain province within 7 days. We must capture Xianxia city within half a month. Yes. Chapter 10:16. On the 15th day of the 4th month, it was already spring in the Shattered Cauldron realm. Hundreds of flowers bloomed in the forest, and the forest was covered in a layer of lush greenery. Early in the morning, a light drizzle had just fallen, and it was cool to the touch. The forest was filled with the sounds of weapons rubbing against armor and horses stomping through the mud. From afar, the densely packed army of the Blackstone Empire had already filled the entire forest. At the front of the formation were all armored cavalry. Their warhorses had trophies of war hanging from their necks. These were the heads of the Empire's citizens. Defenseless civilians had been slaughtered, and their hair had been tied to the horses' necks to be used as battle points. Whoosh! From the sky, a figure rapidly descended. It was Fu Yun, the commander of the Dragon Riders and one of the core members of the Blackstone Empire's remnant army known as the Northern Expedition. How is it, Lord Fu Yun? Lu Yen asked as he reined in his warhorse. Fu Yun respectfully replied, It has been cleaned up. It seems that the Great Qin's border guards have already smelled our scent, so they have sent quite a number of troops to spy on us. Unfortunately, they have underestimated the Blackstone Empire. There was 100-man scout team in front of us, but they have already been dealt with by this subordinate. Commander, pass down the order for the army to advance directly. All right. Fu Yun smiled and raised his arm. Continue to march north. Behind the armored cavalry was a group of soldiers with heavy shields. Most of them were freshly trained soldiers of the Nanman tribes, and their combat strength had yet to be tested. Regardless of whether they could participate in the battle, the impatient Lu Yen could not wait any longer. He had to get them into battle mode as soon as possible, because his group had been starving for many days. The Nanman tribes were poor, and Lu Yan's 150,000-strong army and the Iha Kingdom's 100,000-strong army had almost finished all the food that the Nanman tribes had stored for many years in a single winter. Now that spring was in full bloom, they had to go north to find more food for the army. Otherwise, they would all starve to death in the barren forest. When the soldiers passed by, they could smell the faint scent of blood in the wilderness. Looking into the distance, they could see corpses lying in the depths of the forest. These corpses had been soldiers when they were alive, and they could faintly see the bronze and silver purple flower insignia on their arms. They were the Empire's scout team, and they belonged to the garrison of the Mingshan province. Lu Yen took a deep breath. Godly experts were indeed ruthless. One of them could kill 100 people without a sound, and not a single one of them could escape to report back. Bailey Yen, on the other hand, frowned. He was deeply worried, but he could not say anything about it. Lu Yen grabbed the reins and urged the horse forward. He turned to look at Bailey Yen and asked, Advisor, what's wrong? It's nothing. Bailey Yen smiled. Counselor seems to be depressed. Is he worried about Qin Yi's army? Of Bailey Mountain Bailey Yen frowned and said, We are already on the way to the north. However, there are some things that I do not know if I should say. If I say it, it might shake the morale of the army. If I don't say it, Lu Yen laughed, why are you so troublesome today? Speak, you are the descendant of Marshal Bailey Qin. You can say whatever you want to say, and only I, Lu Yen, can hear it. No one will be able to shake the army's morale. Bailey Yen nodded, looked at the newly grown grass and the horses' hoof prints in the mud, and said, We now have 150,000 people, and nearly half of them are new soldiers. Their combat strength is unknown, and there is also Qin Yi's army of 150,000 people. Qin Yi, that old fox, has not died for a long time, so he must be stalling for time. As for us, Commander, do you really think that our 150,000 people, which is a mix of good and bad, can really conquer the 4 great provinces of Lingnan? What do you think, Counselor? Lu Yen was startled. I don't think so. Bai Liyan's pair of eyes were full of cautiousness and said, the strength of Qin Empire is obvious to all. Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and the others are even more formidable, especially Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing. These 2 people can be said to be talented in both the pen and the sword. They are not only the masters of the God state, but they are also talented generals with military strategy. In terms of military strength and strategy, I am afraid that we are far inferior to them. Once the Qin Empire crushes us with the strength of the whole country, I am afraid that we will be defeated in less than a month. Hee. Lu Yen smiled slightly and said, the most important thing that the counselor did not mention is that although the Qin Empire is strong, they are not united. What's more, now that the Congress has made the whole Lanyan city into a mess, Qin Yin, Lin Muyu, Tang Xiaoxi and the others are said to be in closed-door training, but there is also a rumor that they have already ascended. In this way, who is the master of the world is another matter. If we do not take advantage of this opportunity to recapture Lingnan, I am afraid that in the future, there will not be such a heaven-sent opportunity. So, Commander has already decided to deal with the Qin Empire in Lingnan? Bai Liyan asked. Yes. Lu Yen took a deep breath. Half a month ago, we received a letter from the Empire. Now that the Celestial Empire has suffered a crushing defeat, nearly 1 million soldiers died in battle, and their vitality is greatly damaged, but there are still hundreds of thousands of their strong troops at the border, and a variable, the Bai Zhe mercenaries, has appeared in the north. That Si Kongyao's appetite is not small, and sooner or later, she will attack the Blackstone Empire, so His Majesty has also made a decision. Rather than fighting with hungry wolves, it is better to fight with a wounded tiger. Bai Liyan was stunned. What His Majesty means is, the Celestial Empire and the Bai Zhe mercenaries are hungry wolves, and the Qin Empire is a wounded tiger. That's right. The Qin Empire has experienced so many years of war, and their national strength has long been exhausted. They can no longer withstand another war. As long as we attack, we can seize this piece of land. Moreover, His Majesty has promised that as long as we conquer Lingnan, the second fleet of the Blackstone Empire will arrive in a few days, and move to the Shattered Cauldron realm with the power of the entire country. Move? Bai Liyan's eyes were filled with amazement. This idea was too crazy. Could it be that the Blackstone Empire really wanted to treat the Shattered Cauldron realm as a colonial territory? Where does His Majesty's confidence come from? After pondering for a long time, Bai Liyan asked. Lu Yen smiled faintly and said, the sect master of the Thunderblaze sect, Long Shi, and the valley master of the Wolf Valley, Hisong, have already made a secret agreement with His Majesty. As long as we seize the 2 provinces of Lingnan, they will move with all their strength and fight with the Qin clan for the fertile land of the Shattered Cauldron realm. What? The Thunderblaze sect and the Wolf Valley have decided to participate in the war? Yes. Bai Liyan's face was full of shock as he said, I didn't expect that even the Wolf Valley, which has been dormant for so many years, would involve itself in the war. I really didn't expect. Lu Yen patted Bai Liyan's shoulder and said with a smile, Brother, there are still many things that you didn't expect. The situation is changing. The Thunderblaze sect and the Wolf Valley also have to think about their future, right? Bai Liyan fell silent and said, Then, Commander, what's your first step in the attack? Lu Yan's eyes were full of fierce light as he said in a deep voice, First seize the southernmost Ox-Horn city of the Bright Mountain province, then attack Yu City and Lai City on the left and right, forming a pincer attack on Xianxia City. Within 10 days, we will conquer Xianxia City in one fell swoop. Within half a month, we will conquer the entire Bright Mountain province. Good, so the commander has already planned it out. Bai Liyan nodded. I hope everything goes smoothly. A day later, the heavy rain had stopped. After a spring rain, all living things were in full bloom. Oxhorn City was a county city with hundreds of beautiful flowers. The pear blossoms and peach blossoms dozens of miles outside the city were pleasing to the eye. To the south of Oxhorn City was a forest. Many hunters lived at the edge of the forest, but there were no hunters further in. This was because the forest was too dangerous with spirit beasts running rampant in it. Therefore, to ordinary civilians, the depths of the forest was an unpredictable forbidden land. No one went there unless they were courting death. But on this day, a group of reapers appeared in this forbidden land. As the massive dragons circled in the sky and the armored horsemen swept across the earth, the dense army of the Blackstone Empire swept through the entire southern part of Oxhorn City like a dark cloud. The defenders of the city didn't even have a chance to resist before they were routed. Fu Yun led a squad of dragon riders and blasted open the city gates. Lu Yen led his men in, and the cavalry surrounded Oxhorn City. The defenders of Oxhorn City were all killed, and even the messenger birds they had sent out into the sky were hunted down by the dragon riders and wolf falcons. The people far away weren't even able to receive a single piece of news. After leaving behind 500 men to defend the city and restocking the granaries, Lu Yen and Fu Yun split up. Fu Yun led tens of thousands of soldiers to attack Lai City, while Lu Yen led the army along the official road to attack the legendary city of Yu. 3 days later, the army arrived within the borders of the city of Yu. Along the way, there was very little resistance. The most powerful resistance force only had 3,000 men, but they were all slaughtered until they were in tatters, unable to retaliate at all. City of Yu was a city that towered between mountains. The surrounding terrain was extremely precipitous, and mountain forests extended endlessly. However, the area around City of Yu just so happened to be flat, suitable for farming. As a result, after thousands of years of reproduction, a city was formed here, and it was named City of Yu by the Qin family's ancestors. Over the countless years, City of Yu had given birth to countless capable and ambitious people. Among them, Lin Muyu, who came up with the plan of crossing the mountain ridge, as well as the late marshal of the Iha country, Long Qianlin, were both people from City of Yu. However, on this day, City of Yu was about to usher in a calamity. Before Lu Yan's army arrived, City of Yu's 4 city gates had long been tightly shut. The soldiers on the city walls were all on standby, and the dragon hunting crossbows and magic crystal cannons had also been pushed onto the city walls. Compared to Oxhorn City, which was caught off guard, City of Yu at least had a premonition. Even though it was only half a day of premonition, it seemed to be enough. On the city walls, the general of the defending army was an old general of the Iha country named Man Sun. It was said that he was the distant nephew of Marquis Man Ning, but there was no way to verify this. Man Sun was skilled in leading troops, and he had a great reputation in the Iha country. People called him General Sun. It was precisely because of this that Xianxia felt at ease leaving such an important city like City of Yu in his hands. Chapter 1017. Back then, when Feng Jixing was on a southern expedition against Iha country, he seized Yu City without shedding a single drop of blood. Afterwards, he formed an encirclement around Xiangyang City. Therefore, Yu City was a lucky city that had not been affected by the flames of war for 10 years. But today, it would not be so lucky again. The Blackstone Empire's army came in a menacing manner. The heroes of Celestial Pole continent that the Empire thought had already been defeated appeared once again. Man Sun's slightly weathered face was filled with helplessness. He lightly held the cold brick on the battlement and said, "Why did they make a comeback? Didn't our scouts report half a year ago that the remnants of the Blackstone Empire's army had been defeated and fled back to their homeland? Now that it's like this, how are we going to resist?" The young deputy general was at a loss. General Sun, then what should we do? What else can we do? Man Sun smiled bitterly. Attack for me. Once they get close to the city, use the magic crystal cannons to let them know how powerful we are. The Blackstone Empire has always been cruel and overbearing. If we let them easily capture Yu City, I'm afraid that the hundreds of thousands of civilians in the city will suffer for nothing. Yes, this subordinate understands. The deputy general cupped his fists. The doubt on his face was still not gone. But we only have less than 10,000 soldiers in Yu City. How can we resist them? General, look, the Blackstone Empire has at least 80,000 troops, don't worry. Man Sun said softly, I've already sent dozens of letters to Xianxia City to request for reinforcements. As long as General Xiang Yu receives the news, he will definitely bring the 40,000 soldiers in Xianxia City as reinforcements. At that time, we won't have to worry about not being able to destroy this insignificant motley crew of tens of thousands. Yes, this subordinate will go past the order right now. In the next moment, the sound of a bugle horn rang. The entire Yu City entered a state of battle preparation. Numerous archers on the city walls pulled their bowstrings and pointed at the city below. The black muzzles of the magic crystal cannons were also pointed at the outside of the city, waiting for the enemy to enter their firing range. Although Yu City was a small city, its strategic position was very important. So it was also equipped with 20 light magic crystal cannons. Although it was not enough to resist Liu Yan's army, it was better than nothing. Below the city walls, the sound of hooves grew louder and louder. Countless Blackstone Empire cavalrymen were already in sight. The faces of the defenders on the city walls were all pale, and they could barely breathe. Their hearts were beating incredibly fast, and an unprecedented battle was about to descend. Normally, they would shout, "Protect Great Qin with our lives and blood," but now that the battle was right in front of them, all they could smell was the aura of death. Prepare for battle. Man Sun pulled out his sword and shouted loudly, "Protect my country, even if I die, it's still glorious." The magic crystal cannons began to fire, and mushroom clouds began to evaporate in the distance. Liu Yan didn't bring many dragon knights with him, and he couldn't use battle spin in time, so he could only let the magic crystal cannons fire at him. Fortunately, there weren't many magic crystal cannons in Yu City, so not many people died. Shwa shwa, giant dragons appeared in the sky and swooped down towards the city gate. The deputy general was greatly alarmed. "General Sun, they want to directly break the door. This group of beasts." Man Sun brandished his sharp sword. "Dream on. Aim at the dragon knights and use the dragon hunting crossbow to kill them." "Damn, this group of bastards, we should have equipped Yu City with god-slaying cannons." The deputy general was speechless, and he actually didn't know how to reply. The materials required for god-slaying cannons were too harsh, and the entire military department of the empire only had a few god-slaying cannons. For a small city in the south like Yu City to want god-slaying cannons, it was simply a fantasy. Shwa shwa shwa. The dragon hunting crossbow shot out a giant net in the sky, but the dragon knights seemed to have expected it. They rode on their giant dragons and nimbly dodged the net. Following that, sword chi landed on the city walls, causing stone fragments to fly everywhere. There were even quite a few defending soldiers who were directly dismembered by the sword chi. If this continued, Yu City wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Man Sun's expression was grave and stern. "Defend for me even if you die. Prepare the black beech oil. Once the door is broken, immediately seal the door with fire. Don't let their cavalry enter easily." He was very smart. Warhorses were afraid of fire, and once the black beech oil was poured on them, it would prevent the cavalry from entering the city. Although this way, the people in the city wouldn't be able to leave, Man Sun didn't even think of leaving. If he lost Yu City, not to mention that he would have to go to the military court, just Xiang Yu alone wouldn't spare his life. The entire Yu City quickly fell into a bitter battle, and the entire city was filled with smoke and fire. Xianxia City, Military Hall. Xiang Yu's face was ashen, and he quietly sat on the commander's seat. The group of captaincy and kiliarchs were deathly pale, and all of them were silent. In front of Xiang Yu were dozens of letters, and all of them had the same content. "Yu City and Lai City are being attacked at the same time, what should we do?" Xiang Yu asked. Lu Yongchang said, "This subordinate thinks that we should split our forces to provide assistance." "How do we provide assistance?" A captaincy stood up and said, "That's easy for you to say, old general. Our Xianxia City only has a total of 40,000 soldiers. Should we leave 10,000 to defend the city, and split the remaining 30,000 into 2 groups to provide assistance? Using 15,000 soldiers to fight head-on against the 80,000 soldiers of the Blackstone Empire? Isn't that courting death? But we can't not save them. Lu Yongchang didn't get angry. He calmly said, once Yu City and Lai City fall, Xianxia City will be attacked from 3 sides. Captain Si laughed coldly. Once we split our forces to provide assistance, we'll truly be consigned to eternal damnation. With 10,000 soldiers defending Xianxia City, isn't that equivalent to sending a fat piece of meat to the wolves? Lu Yongchang frowned. At the very least, if we assume the position of providing assistance, we can delay for a while and wait for reinforcements to arrive. Delay my ass. Captain Si cursed. In my opinion, we should order Yu City and Lai City to fight to the death and exhaust as many of the Blackstone Empire's soldiers as we can. That way, Xianxia City will have a chance at victory. Lu Yongchang gritted his teeth. Stop quarreling. Xiang Yu stood up and said, immediately send a letter to Lanyan City to request for reinforcements. In addition, which army is the closest to us? Lu Yongchang said, reporting to Duke Yu, it's the garrisons of Lingnan Province and Lingkong Province. Lingnan Province has 30,000 soldiers, while Lingkong Province has 50,000. However, they are all newly trained troops with ordinary equipment and supplies. There's no need to consider their battle strength. Therefore, the nearest regular army should be the 50,000 Songnan Army of Tsangnan Province, directly commanded by Su Jiantao. Forget it. Xiang Yu said, send a letter to Su Jiantao directly and request for reinforcements. In addition, ask for reinforcements from Bailing City and Linghan City as well. The more the better. Then, what about Yu City and Lai City? Xiang Yu slowly sat down and closed his eyes. His eyelashes could not help but tremble a few times as he said, our top priority is to defend Xianxia City. As long as Xianxia City is still there, we can hold the pass and prevent Lu Yan's army from advancing north. We can seal them in Mingshan Province. We cannot bring the flames of war to the north. Otherwise, we will all be the sinners of the empire. Yes, this subordinate understands. All the generals saluted. In a sense, Xiang Yu's words had pushed aside the clouds and moon in everyone's hearts. As a soldier, it was their duty to be loyal to the country, and Xiang Yu was doing so. At the same time, thousands of miles away, Lanyan City. In the commander's tent of the Imperial Army, Feng Jixing was leaning on the chair and dozing off. The food in the copper cauldron in front of him had been swept clean. It was rare for him to have a full meal, so he slept early. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A small sound fluttered in his ears and he frowned in his sleep. When he opened his eyes, he found a bee flying around in front of him and lingering as if it wanted to say something. Disturbing one's sleep, it should be sent to the afterlife. He opened his palm and divine power surged. The wind whirlpool quickly controlled the bee. Squeak, squeak. The bee suddenly made an unusual sound. Instantly, Feng Jixing was stunned. What's going on? The bee landed lightly on the table and shook its tail. It flapped its wings and its body emitted a fiery red glow. The next moment, beams of light shot out from its back and interwove in the air to form a moving image. It was the real-time image of Yu City and Licheng City being attacked in the distance. Ah! Feng Jixing sat up abruptly, his face pale. That's Licheng City and Yu City? Quick, let me see the enemy's flag. The bee could understand his words. After zooming in unsteadily, the flag of the cavalry was very obvious. It was a war flag with a bear's body, the flag of the Blackstone Empire. Damn it! Feng Jixing gritted his teeth. Is this the automatic defense mechanism left behind by Yu City? Licheng City and Yu City have been attacked. Where did this Blackstone Empire army come from? Damn it, quick, let me see how many soldiers they have. The bee squeaked. The bee in the faraway Mingshan province continued to fly higher. The camera overlooked the land and saw a black mass of soldiers from the Blackstone Empire. Feng Jixing couldn't help but gasp. The CTNN has a total of 100,000 soldiers. Damn it, why did so many soldiers suddenly appear? Xiang Yu, that idiot, is in trouble. He nodded at the bee. Thank you, little fellow. I should go do what I have to do. After saying that, he grabbed his helmet and leaped out of the tent. Outside the tent, Zhang Wei was stunned. Commander, what's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry? Immediately send an order to all the generals stationed in the imperial capital. Gather at Zetian Palace for a meeting. Something big has happened. Yes. In Zetian Palace, Wei Chou, Sidusen, Suyu, Qin Yan, Qin Lian, and the others had already arrived. Meanwhile, Feng Jixing briefly explained the battle in Lingnan. Is the information accurate? Wei Chou asked. It's the information that the little fellows left behind by you gave me. Feng Jixing said, if you believe Yu's words, you should know whether it's accurate or not. Moreover, I also saw the scene of Lai City and Yu City being attacked. The situation is very tragic. I'm afraid that they won't be able to hold on for more than a few days. Once these two cities fall, Xiangyang City will be next. Xiang Yu doesn't have many soldiers at his disposal. He definitely won't be able to hold on. Su'er said, where did this Blackstone Empire army come from? Wei Chou muttered, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't return to the Blackstone Empire. Instead, they circled around the East Sea and came back. They laid dormant in the southern wastelands and then launched an attack. Sidusen said, Xiang Yu's soldiers are few. It's difficult for him to hold on alone. Moreover, they have the Dragon Cavalry Regiment. Xiang Yu won't be able to hold on even more. We must send reinforcements to Xiangyang City as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the southern gate will be opened first. Su'er nodded. Before Her Highness went into seclusion, she said that General Feng can make decisions on his own if there are any major events. Right now, General Feng is the marshal of the three armies. He can give the order. Feng Jixing nodded. Send my order to Su Jiantao. Order him to lead 10,000 cavalry of the Tsangnan army as reinforcements. Immediately gather light cavalry in the imperial capital and bring magic crystal crossbows to Xiangyang City. The sooner the better. There's no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Zhuang Yan stood out from the crowd of generals and said, General Feng, in the face of national calamity, the national army is duty-bound. Zhuang Yan is willing to lead the national army to reinforce Lingnan. National army? Will it work? Feng Jixing expressed his doubt. Zhuang Yan said, it will definitely work. That's good. Feng Jixing revealed a smile. Send Zhuang Yan as the vanguard and lead 200,000 national army to Lingnan to reinforce Xiangyang City. After that, I will personally lead 80,000 imperial soldiers to bring up the rear. All the defense of Lanyan City will be handed over to the Longdan army camp. Chapter 10:18. At night, the sky was filled with stars, shining brightly like an inverted jewel. In the south of the imperial capital, on the plains south of Lanyan City, a large number of carriages left the city in an orderly manner and headed straight for Lingnan. The supplies they escorted were nothing more than weapons, equipment, and rations. Before the three armies moved, the rations went first. Within a day, Feng Jixing had already gathered a large number of rations and sent them to Lingnan. Under the starlight, Feng Jixing rode a white horse and stood alone on the slope. Looking at the endless flow of carriages in the distance, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. There was going to be a war again. He really didn't know when it would end. Thud, thud, thud. Amidst the sound of hooves, Wei Chou rode a fine horse and galloped over. He stood beside Feng Jixing and said, Lu Yen has long been a stray dog. Colluding with Nan Man and the remnants of Iha country to rebel is just a desperate counterattack. As long as we defeat their spirit in one battle, this rebel army will naturally collapse. General Feng doesn't have to worry too much. The night breeze blew and Feng Jixing's cloak fluttered. His handsome face had an indifferent smile. I'm afraid the one who is worried is not me, but Lord Wei Chou? Wei Chou was stunned and smiled. Why do you say that? You are a dignified minister of war. Instead of mobilizing troops, you came to watch me transport rations. If this isn't worry, then what is it? Tell me, what are you worried about? Wei Chou touched his nose. As expected, I can't escape General Feng's discerning eyes. What I'm worried about is very simple. Zhuang Yan, Su Chengjing, Lu Xiyu, and the others have ulterior motives. This time, mobilizing 200,000 soldiers to Lingnan to defend against the enemy may not be a good thing. Zhuang Yan's power is declining and is not as strong as before. If I were Zhuang Yan, I would definitely think of something else. The chaos in Lingnan is a great opportunity for them. Once Zhuang Yan returns to Lingnan, it will be like a dragon returning to the sea or a tiger returning to the mountain. I'm afraid that General Feng's 80,000 Imperial Guards will not be able to control him. Lord Wei Chou also thinks that Zhuang Yan will cause trouble? Feng Jixing asked with a smile. Yes, but I'm curious why General Feng can still smile? Why can't I laugh? Feng Jixing waved his hand and said, back then, the Congress had 700,000 troops, which were like a mountain pressing down on Lanyan City, making it hard for us to breathe. But now, it's much better. If Zhuang Yan wants to go, let him go. It's just nice to return peace to the imperial capital. At least when you and Her Highness return, Lanyan City will still be Lanyan City, not a ruined city. As for the possibility of Zhuang Yan colluding with the rebels, I'm more than happy to hear that. As he spoke, Feng Jixing's eyes turned cold. I was just worrying about not having a chance to destroy Zhuang Yan's national army. This is a good opportunity. Lord Wei Chou, don't think that I only have 80,000 imperial soldiers. Have you forgotten the 50,000 Songnan army? That brat Su Jiantao is a peerless general talent. The 50,000 Songnan army in his hands is enough to match the 200,000 national army. As long as I join hands with Su Jiantao, not to mention one Zhuang Yan, even if he, Lu Yan, and Qi Ni were tied together, I would not be afraid. Perhaps. Wei Chou was still somewhat worried. After all, he had followed Lin Muyu for a long time, and his personality was more cautious. He was far from a general like Zhang Wei. At this time, there was another group of horses galloping over from the distance. The war horses these people rode were all very majestic, and the flags they carried did not belong to any of the armies of the empire. It was the flag of the supply department. Without needing to think, it was obvious who had come. The person in charge of the supply department of the empire had long been replaced by the person Lin Muyu trusted. It was Ding Shi. Under the starlight, the old General Ding Shi spurred his horse over in high spirits. After leaping onto the slope, he reined in his horse and said with a smile, "You guys really are here. I've been looking for you for a long time." "What is Commander Ding doing?" Feng Jixing asked with a smile. Ding Shi smiled awkwardly. "General Feng, don't call me Commander Ding, it's too much of an insult to me. You should call me Ding Shi." "All right, General Ding Shi." Feng Jixing had always respected Ding Shi. Ding Shi had a clear distinction between right and wrong. He had saved Qin Yin's life twice. For the entire Qin Empire, he was a benevolent man worthy of respect. Feng Jixing was no exception. He said, "General Ding Shi is responsible for all the logistics supplies this time." Ding Shi frowned. Logistics supplies are important, but the officials of the supply department can naturally arrange it well. "I have a request." "Oh? What request?" "There are 3,000 elite cavalry trained in the supply department. I asked General Feng to allow me to lead these 3,000 cavalry to accompany you and help General Feng to eliminate the hostile forces in Lingnan." "General Ding Shi is going to Lingnan?" Feng Jixing was surprised. "That's right." Ding Shi looked towards the south from afar and said, "Southern Ridge is my home. Not to mention, not only is there Lu Yan's Darkstone Empire's army in the Southern Ridge chaos this time, there's even Qin Yi's army of 100,000. I think Commander Feng ought to know that I was once the commander of this army, whereas this army is like a child to me. I'm truly unable to bear to see all of them perish on the battlefield. If it's possible, I'm willing to privately persuade all the generals to bring this army that originally belonged to the empire back into the embrace of the empire." Ding Shi sighed with some regret. Many of them were once only children, but followed the army from Lingnan to Dragon Island, and then wandered to the southern barbarians. In the blink of an eye, They have grown from children to adults, but it is difficult for them to return to their homeland. I don't want them to end up dying tragically. I asked General Feng to approve my request. Feng Jixing was slightly moved. He nodded and said, "This is human nature. General Ding Shi, there is no need to say more. You are someone that Her Highness and you trust. I, Feng Jixing, also believe in you. Just follow me. What Ding Shi does will not disappoint the world." "Yes, many thanks, General Feng." Ding Shi cupped his fists and bowed. His heart was full of mixed feelings. What Ding Shi does will not disappoint the world. These simple words revealed Feng Jixing's broad-mindedness. If the people in power of the Yihe nation could have half of this broad-mindedness, the Yihe nation would not have fallen to such a situation today. Feng Jixing looked up at the stars in the sky and suddenly sighed. He said lightly, "More than a month in the Shattered Cauldron world, and a year in the Ancient Mystery Land. I don't know how you and Her Highness are doing in the Ancient Mystery Land. I hope they can return soon, so we don't have to struggle like this. Now that the Blackstone Empire has invaded, I really don't know who will be next." Ding Shi and Wei Chou were silent. They didn't know how to answer. Above the 9 heavens, far away, through the layers of clouds, the morning light shone on a huge fortress in the wilderness. In front of the fortress, the words, "Dragon City," were engraved on a huge rock. At this time, the gate of the city was wide open. Rows of cavalry servants came out of the city to protect the civilians as they went to the outside of the fortress to plant and do business. After the servants left the city, a group of people entered the fortress from outside the city. Almost all of them were injured, and their faces were pale. They went straight to the Dragon City Hall without saying a word. Early in the morning, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin sat opposite each other, sipping tea and playing chess. "Let's go, General," Qin Yin chuckled. Lin Muyu's face was livid. Why didn't I think of this? Xiao Yin, let's take a step back, okay?" No, brother you've already taken a step back 7 or 8 times in one game. Look at you, you're too serious. You don't even have the mood to entertain yourself. Lin Muyu racked his brains for a solution. He was the one who taught Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi how to play chess. But now, he was always killed by the 2 smart beauties. He was trapped in a cocoon of his own making. At this time, a person floated over. It was Feng Zhanlin. He said respectfully, "Lin General, our people who went to explore the Star Spirit Valley have returned." "Oh, let them come back then." Lin Muyu's attention was still on the chessboard. Feng Zhanlin said, "Only a few servants came back. 1 divine king and 4 ultimate gods have all disappeared." "What?" Lin Muyu suddenly stood up and said in shock, "What happened? Why did they disappear?" The servant army brought back news that they only sent the divine state experts to the outside of the Star Spirit Valley and did not go in because there is a very strong poisonous gas in the Star Spirit Valley. There was no news of the 5 divine state experts after they entered the Star Spirit Valley. Only a few screams were heard half an hour later. The servant army tried to enter but was forced back by the poisonous gas. Many of them died. In my opinion, it's better to stop exploring the Star Spirit Valley. This area has been listed as a forbidden area in the 64 domains since more than 3,000 years ago. Qin Yin's beautiful eyes showed caution and said, "If we send more people, I'm afraid we'll die in vain." Lin Muyu took a deep breath and looked at Qin Yin. She said, "Xiao Yin, you know me the best. You know what I want to do." Qin Yin could not help but smile. "Are we really going?" "Yes, the Star Spirit Valley is one of the territories of the Dragon League. How can we allow there to be a forbidden area in our territory? I don't believe it. Let's make some preparations and choose a day to go to the Star Spirit Valley. We don't need too many people. You, me, Sister Xian, Xiaoxi, and Fuzhu will be enough. Fuzhu is a spiritual beast and can sense danger. It's the right choice to bring him along." Feng Zhanlin frowned and said, "There may be other dangers in the Star Spirit Valley. Why don't I lead a group of people and go with Lin General?" "No need. It's more important for you and Mochi Lin to guard Dragon City. Maybe the Tianluo Star region will come looking for trouble." "Yes, Lin General, You and the rest must be careful. Yes, don't worry. The Star Spirit Valley was a valley in the southwest of Dragon City. It had always been classified as a forbidden area. There were no residents within 10 miles of the Star Spirit Valley. Even divine realm masters were not willing to go there. After all, it was a dangerous place. However, this kind of place was often occupied by evil beasts like Fuzhu, killing mortals everywhere. Not to mention other things, 5 divine realm masters of Dragon City had died in the Star Spirit Valley. Lin Muyu could not just stand by and watch. Otherwise, he would not be able to be the leader for long. After discussing with Tang Xiaoxi and Shi Yan, they hit it off. They did not even feel afraid. Instead, they became excited. Chapter 10:19. After a night of traveling, they arrived at the territory of Star Spirit Valley at dawn the next day. Looking from afar, the mountains stood proudly in the clouds like giants. The cliffs were extremely steep, and the rocks were overgrown with vegetation. Pine trees stretched out their arms from the rock layer in a welcoming posture, adding layers of green to the grayish-yellow rock mountains. Hundreds of flowers were in full bloom in the mountains, and the clusters of leaves were covered with dew. Whenever someone walked past, the dew would immediately drip down, making a quiet pitter-patter sound. There was no road in this mountain forest, and no one knew how many years it had been since someone came here. As far as the eye could see, the steep mountain peaks formed a mountain range in a strange trajectory, like a giant dragon entrenched on the earth. The mist was dense, and it was hard to see further away. The animals in the forest had also woken up from their sleep. The goshawk was circling in the sky, and the poisonous snake was slithering in the grass, making hissing sounds that made people's hair stand on end. The Star Spirit Valley was in the depths of the mountains, and they were only at the edge of the valley. They were still at least 5 miles away from the entrance of the valley. Before entering the valley, the accompanying servant army had already turned pale. Their task was to send back a message, which was also what Feng Zhanlin and Mochi Lin had requested again and again. Lin Muyu strolled in the forest. She turned around and looked at the 500 servant army, and said, "Why don't you camp here? We'll be able to see you when we come out after entering the valley." A servant army commander hurriedly said, "Alliance leader, please be careful. Then we'll leave you here. And you guys be careful too." "Yes, thank you for your concern, Alliance leader." Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi smiled knowingly. Without the burden of the servant army, it was much easier to enter the valley. However, they were not in a hurry, and continued to walk along the mountains towards the Star Spirit Valley. After all, this area was full of dangers, and they had no idea what was inside. It was better to be cautious. As they got closer and closer to the valley entrance, the surrounding mist became thicker, and it was a faint green mist. "Be careful." Shi Yan's beautiful eyes were filled with wariness. She said, "This mist is poisonous. Use your inner breath. Don't breathe the air outside. Otherwise, the divine power in your body will be affected." Internal breath was a self-circulating ability of a powerhouse's body. Generally speaking, the higher one's cultivation was, the longer they could survive with their inner breath. It was also because of this ability that God state experts could survive in the vacuum zone between the universes. Lin Muyu and the others began to circulate their internal energy to maintain their physical strength. At the same time, they drew their weapons and began to be on guard. "Do we need to use fire to disperse the fog?" Tang Xiaoxi asked. Shi Yan shook her head. "There's no need to act rashly and alert the enemy. This valley is indeed strange. We'd better not let the thing in the valley know of our arrival." Qin Yin suddenly blinked her flaming eyes and said, "Look over there." Everyone looked over and was surprised to see a big tree broken in the middle. The cut was very smooth, and it seemed to have been cut by a sharp blade. Further away, they could see sharp scratches on the grass, which should have been caused by sword chi or saber chi. Further away, there were streaks of golden blood on the grass. The blood had long since solidified, but there was no trace of anyone. Lin Muyu walked forward, picked up the blood-stained grass with the blade of her sword, and gently sniffed it. What did you smell? Tang Xiaoxi asked. Lin Muyu shook her head. Tang Xiaoxi pouted. Then why did you smell it? It's always like this in the movies. Just when Tang Xiaoxi wanted to beat him up, Xian stretched out her hand and pointed not far away. She said, "Look over there, there's a very big cave under the rock wall." Everyone looked over. Not only was there a cave, but there were also some blood-stained rags on the thorns. They could imagine that this was left behind by a person being dragged across the thorns. Furthermore, this person was not dead, because there were scratch marks left behind by 5 fingers in the thorns. This God-state master was dragged by something and walked past here. Suddenly, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin looked at each other and felt a chill in their hearts. What kind of thing could drag a immortal state master? And most likely, it was eaten. Shi Yan walked to the entrance of the cave, sniffed, and slightly frowned. "What smell do you smell?" Lin Muyu asked. "The smell of a snake." "A snake?" "Yes, it must be a snake," Shi Yan said confidently, "and it's a giant snake guarding this place. The immortal state masters who died in Dragon City are most likely the work of this snake." "Lure it out and kill it," Lin Muyu said. "How do we lure it out? It doesn't seem to want to come out." Shi Yan said, "It's because our aura is too strong, so it doesn't want to come out and face us. That's why we have to force it out. Fuzhu, it's time for you to show your power. Fill the snake cave with water." "Fill the snake cave?" Fuzhu was speechless. "So that's all I can do." As he spoke, he let out a low roar and pushed his palms forward. Instantly, a column of water sprayed into the cave. Since Fuzhu could control all the water in the world, the water in the forest naturally obeyed his command. Wisps of water from the canopy, leaves, and grass flew over as if summoned, turning into a torrent that flowed into the cave. The inside of the snake cave must be very large. Fuzhu filled the cave with water for nearly 10 minutes, and it was finally full. The water was already overflowing from the entrance. Snakes can't stay underwater without breathing for a long time. It must be the same for this giant snake. Shi Yan said confidently, "We'd better retreat a little, lest we get scared when this beast rushes out." Lin Muyu agreed deeply. She pulled Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi back a little. Then, she held the Xianyuan sword and secretly infused her divine power into the blade. She was ready for battle. Suddenly, a powerful aura awoke from the ground and surged. "It's here!" Lin Muyu was not afraid. Instead, she was excited. Poof, water splashed and a huge, ferocious head broke out of the water. It opened its mouth and tried to swallow Fuzhu. The giant snake's body was 1/2 meter thick, and its triangular head was like a giant dipper. When its upper and lower jaws were fully opened, it could swallow an adult in an instant. "Beast, why do you have to bite me?" Fuzhu roared and condensed a barrier of water between his palms. The barrier shattered under the snake's powerful bite, and Fuzhu was forced to take a few steps back. He was furious. "If I don't kill you, my surname isn't Fuzhu." Rolling up his sleeves, Fuzhu dashed forward like an arrow, riding on the serpent's head and giving it a good beating. Every punch was accompanied by an icy glint. Fuzhu was a water-type ferocious beast, so the 7 to 8 punches were enough to make the serpent dizzy. However, before it could celebrate, a gust of cold wind blew behind it. Fuzhu fell into a thicket of thorns, and the thing that swept him away was the snake's tail. The tail was like a steel whip, and it hurt. But Fuzhu's skin was thick, and it only hurt, but not hurt. Lin Muyu could not stand it anymore. She shouted, "Move aside, I'll finish it off." Like lightning, she used the fallen star steps and rushed toward the snake. The Xianyuan sword swept out with the chaos of the lives. The sword pierced through the snake's armor and tore a large hole in its abdomen. But that was not all. Lin Muyu stomped on the ground, and her body shot out like an arrow. Her leg was filled with the power of the 3 luminaries' calamity, and it landed heavily on the snake's lower jaw. Crack! The force of the kick was so great that the snake's mouth slammed into each other, and 2 poisonous fangs flew out and broke. The snake let out a wail like a baby, and it did not stop. Its body began to curl up like a pile of cow dung, and only its head was left bobbing up and down at Lin Muyu. Is it begging for mercy? Tang Xiaoxi was shocked. I think so. Lin Muyu was a little embarrassed to attack. Shi Yan's beautiful eyes swept the surroundings and said, Don't you feel that something is wrong? What's wrong? Many things are coming, that's right. Qin Yin looked at the grass in the distance and said, It's a poisonous snake. Be careful, it's the Snake King, and it's summoning poisonous snakes to help it. Sure enough, the grass and leaves in the surroundings constantly trembled. Poisonous snakes appeared in everyone's field of vision, and they were all poisonous snakes. It was common knowledge that there were many poisonous snakes deep in the mountains, and there were many poisonous snakes on the outskirts of the Star Spirit Valley. From afar, there were thousands of them. Some of these poisonous snakes can spit venom. Lin Muyu knew more about poisonous insects and beasts, and said, Activate the Wall of Divinity and Shield of Vigor. Don't let the venom come into contact with you, or you'll be in trouble. Then he looked at the Snake King coldly. He could not let it go this time. He raised his palm, and the invisible elephant spell activated automatically. Hum hum hum. The mountain range trembled, and in the next moment, a huge boulder fell from the top of the cliff, smashing into the Serpent King's head with a loud bang. As the boulder shattered, the Serpent King howled in pain. Lin Muyu brandished her sword wildly in the air, and the sword chi rained down on the Serpent King's body like rain. The Serpent King's skin and flesh were lacerated, and finally, the sword stabbed heavily into the Serpent King's head. Around them, Qin Yin opened her flaming eyes, and a whirlwind of raging flames quickly burned the poisonous snakes to death. Tang Xiaoxi also set fire everywhere, while Shi Yan waved the Chiwe sword, and beams of sword chi poured out. We can't stay here any longer. Lin Muyu looked at the Snake King's open stomach, and there were only 2 corpses inside, and said, Let's go into the Astral Spirit Valley. Not all of our people were killed by this Snake King. Several figures flew into the Astral Spirit Valley. This Snake King was obviously just a guard, and the danger in the Astral Spirit Valley was no less than here. Chapter 1020. The air was still enshrouded with green poisonous gas, which seemed to come from the flowers and trees in the valley. Fortunately, Lin Muyu and the others had already started to circulate their internal energy, so their strength would not be affected by the poison in the air. However, the fog was getting thicker and thicker, and it greatly interfered with their vision. The ground was covered with wet pebbles. Walking on the path in the valley, Lin Muyu frowned and suddenly bent down to touch the pebbles under her feet. Her expression was serious. What's wrong, brother you? Qin Yin asked while guarding him with her long sword. Shi Yan also said, Did you see anything? These pebbles can't be so smooth if they haven't been washed by water for a long time. Lin Muyu turned over a pebble with certainty, sniffed at the bottom, and said, The soil has a very strong smell of underwater soil. Maybe it has just been soaked in water. This place must have been submerged. But there is no water now. Tang Xiaoxi was shocked. That's the strange thing. Lin Muyu thought hard and looked around and said, What is controlling this place? Look, there is not a single body around. The 3 God State Masters of Dragon City must have died, but their bodies are not here. Could it be that they were washed away by the water? Where does the water come from? That is also a problem. Lin Muyu looked at the thick fog in front of them and said, Anyway, everyone should be careful. This place is too strange. Carrying the Xinyuan sword, Lin Muyu continued to move forward. She gently raised her palm, and a shapeless gust of warm wind blew forward, clearing away the fog and allowing the field of vision to become clearer. Meanwhile, Qin Yin had already opened her eyes of blazing light and cautiously looked around. In terms of vision, no one could surpass the eyes of blazing light. This was something that was obvious. After walking for a few minutes, they still didn't see anyone, not even a bird or beast. It was really unusual. It's so quiet that it's a little abnormal. Shi Yan frowned and said, Why do I feel like we've stepped into a trap designed by someone else? No way, who would have thought that we would be able to come here? Lin Muyu said. Or maybe it's just my imagination. But at this moment, Qin Yin suddenly narrowed her flaming eyes and grabbed Lin Muyu's wrist that was holding the sword. She said, "Be careful, everyone. Something is coming. It seems to be waves, energy. What is it?" Tang Xiaoxi also seemed to have heard something unusual. Woo 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 woo. A series of ghostly wails and howls came from all around. The grass swayed, and even the dense fog was blown away. Suddenly, violent crashing sounds and the sound of flowing water came from all directions. Waves of water that were nearly 10 meters high surged from all directions. What the hell is that? Fu Zhu was shocked. Lin Muyu could not help but say, "Fu Zhu, use your water-splitting technique to defend against this unknown flood." "Yes, master." Fu Zhu roared and slammed his palms down. Instantly, streams of air surged in all directions. This was the power of the water-splitting technique, capable of defending against any water in the world. However, the moment the water-splitting technique's power collided with the surrounding flood, it was as if it had fallen into a whirlpool and was devoured without a trace. The flood continued to sweep over. "It's useless?" Fu Zhu was shocked. "Master, this is definitely not ordinary water. Otherwise, the little critter would have been able to control it. I can see that. Everyone, protect yourselves." Lin Muyu flew behind Qin Yin and Shi Yan with her sword in hand. She formed a gourd wall to protect them while Tang Xiaoxi and Fu Zhu condensed their divine energy to defend against the unknown flood. Bang, bang, bang. The cold flood crashed into everyone and penetrated through the gourd wall and the light wall formed by Shi Yan and Qin Yin, drenching everyone's clothes in an instant. This was definitely not water from the mortal world. It could actually ignore the energy barrier. In the blink of an eye, the 5 of them were submerged in the flood. What was worse was that a dense mass of black shadows surged towards them. Upon closer inspection, one could see that they were fish with fleshy wings. They swam in the water as if they were flying. Shi Yan saw it clearly and hurriedly whispered, "It's the flying divine fishes, a kind of evil beast from another world. Be careful. The teeth of the flying divine fishes are very sharp and can bite through the god wall. This kind of flood is not ordinary water, and the ghost flood raised by the flying divine fishes can penetrate the defense of all things." "Then what should we do?" Tang Xiaoxi panicked. "Kill." The Qi sword in Shi Yan's hand shone with a cold light. "Kill them all. This is the only way. The flying spirit fish are very vengeful. They will chase down all the prey that the flying spirit fish failed to kill, until they are killed and eaten. We can only kill them all. If we can't kill them all, then we can only escape, at least for a while." Lin Muyu understood. The Xianyuan sword in her hand burst with a cold light, and in an instant, dozens of fierce slashes burst out in the flood of ghosts. Immediately, the flood was chopped into whirlpools, and the flying fishes of ghosts and deities that were hit head-on were either shattered or seriously injured. It seemed that their defense was only average, but there were too many of them, and they were densely packed together. Tang Xiaoxi brandished the dig spear, and the tip of the spear transformed into a fiery vortex that burned fiercely in the ghost flood, turning the flying fish into grilled fishes. As for Qin Yin and Shi Yan, they used the same technique, the most chilling law of light martial arts. Shi Yan's 7 slashes split strike kept waving, turning the flying spirit fish into sashimi. Only Fu Zhu's law was different. He waved his arms and summoned icicles, but the effect was minimal. Instead, the flying fishes surged forward and surrounded Fu Zhu's body, biting and tearing at him. The sound of their chewing through his protective aura was ear-piercing. In the blink of an eye, Fu Zhu was covered in wounds and blood. "You can't use frost energy." Shi Yan yelled, "Idiot, the flying spirit fish can control the coldest ghost flood. Why would they be afraid of your frost energy? They are too stupid." Lin Muyu turned around and struck out with the chaos of the common life, driving away all the flying spirit fish around Fu Zhu, but she suddenly felt a sharp pain on her neck. One of the flying spirit fish had bitten her neck, and a crack had appeared on the god wall. She raised her hand and slapped the flying spirit fish to death. Looking at Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin, they were also in a dangerous situation. There were thousands of flying spirit fish, and they were everywhere. If they continued to wreak havoc like this, they would eventually die of exhaustion. Qin Yin gritted her teeth and suddenly swung the sword of destruction, killing hundreds of flying spirit fish. She said, "We can't hold on like this for long. Let's fly to the sky." Tang Xiaoxi leaped up. "I'll lead the way." Swoosh! Tang Xiaoxi's body was wrapped in raging flames, and she soared into the sky. Lin Muyu followed closely behind, but the moment they rushed out of the ghost flood, Lin Muyu's body suddenly trembled, and her mind became a blur. An image lingered in her mind, and it was the image of Tang Xiaoxi's body in the sky, and her body was covered in blood. There were invisible wind blades flying around her, and they were wind saws. Tang Xiaoxi's god wall had already been bitten by the flying spirit fish, and it was impossible for her to defend against the wind saws. This was the power of foresight. Lin Muyu accelerated, and she grabbed Tang Xiaoxi's snow-white ankle and shouted, "It's dangerous in the sky, Xiaoxi, come down quickly." With a forceful pull, and with Tang Xiaoxi's hesitation, she pulled Tang Xiaoxi down from the sky in an instant, and pulled her into her arms. But one after another, the flying spirit fish rushed out of the ghost flood, and flew straight like arrows towards the position where Tang Xiaoxi was just a moment ago. There were at least hundreds of flying spirit fish. At this time, there was a fluctuation in the air, and with a swoosh 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 sound, countless invisible wind saws flew across the sky, and in the blink of an eye, hundreds of flying spirit fish were all turned into raw fish pieces. Oh my God! Tang Xiaoxi was so scared that her delicate body trembled. At that moment, there were at least hundreds of wind saws flying across the sky, and that kind of energy fluctuation could be felt. If it wasn't for Lin Muyu stopping them in time, perhaps Tang Xiaoxi would have been torn to pieces by now. With the wind saws in the sky and the ghost flood controlled by the flying spirit fish under their feet, it had already formed a feeling that there was no way out. Holding Tang Xiaoxi in her arms, Lin Muyu looked around, and suddenly said, "We have to avoid the pursuit of the flying spirit fish as soon as possible. Let's go, there's a cave over there, we'll go in and seal the entrance, and then we'll talk later." Everyone nodded and turned into streams of light, flying between the water and the sky. Behind them, the water surged. The ghost flood was a mass of water flowing in the air, and contained countless flying spirit fish. These fish were simply like Terminators, able to swim around with their living environment, hunting and killing. After Lin Muyu and the others flew away, the flying spirit fish went berserk, and with bloodshot eyes, they controlled the ghost flood to chase after them. Fortunately, the speed of the ghost flood was far slower than Lin Muyu and the others' flying speed. A fierce wind blew past, and everyone entered a cave, while Lin Muyu was responsible for bringing up the rear. Seeing the ghost flood sweeping over from the distance, he hurriedly swung his sword upwards and slashed out a sword chi, immediately cutting off the top of the rock wall, falling to the ground with a loud rumble, and almost perfectly sealing the entrance of the cave. Turning around, he supported Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi's shoulders. The cave was dark, and the two girls were scared out of their wits. Qin Yin worriedly said, "Can we stop it?" "We can." Lin Muyu said with certainty, "The ghost flood can only penetrate our divine barrier, but it can't do anything to objects that originally exist in this world. Look at the ghost flood. When it comes to giant trees and rocks, it will automatically circle around them. The flying spirit fish are unwilling to waste any energy on inanimate objects." That being said, everyone was still very worried when they heard the rumbling sound of the flood of ghosts crashing into the stone door. Even Xian's beautiful eyes were wide open as she looked at Lin Muyu, and she could only hope that this kid's guess was right. Otherwise, as a blazing angel, her wisdom as a blazing angel would be ruined here, and in the end, she would become food for the fishes in the primordial mystic realm. If this news spread out, people would definitely laugh their heads off. Chapter 1021. The roaring lasted for almost a minute. Finally, the flying fishes seemed to have given up. The sound of the flood gradually faded away. Did they give up? Tang Xiaoxi blinked her beautiful eyes and asked. Shi Yan shook her head and said, The flying fishes never give up. They will follow our scent and find us again. Now, our best choice is to leave this place immediately and return to Dragon City. We will rely on the defense of Domain Castle to avoid this disaster. I think the flying fishes have never appeared in the prehistoric Mystery Land before. They must be under some kind of restriction that prevents them from leaving the Star Spirit Valley. Only by leaving this place will we be safe. Lin Muyu furrowed his brows and didn't say a word. He finally understood why the other 3 godly state experts of the Dragon League, including a deity king, were killed without a trace. It must have been the work of these flying fishes. They didn't even leave any bones behind after eating them. Is there really no way to deal with these beasts? Lin Muyu said unwillingly, Sister Xian, we are gods. How can we be chased by a school of fishes? This is too embarrassing. Don't you want to kill them? Besides, I won't be able to get over being targeted by a group of fishes every day. I have to kill them and take revenge for those God Realm elites from the Dragon League. There aren't many ways to kill the flying fishes. Shi Yan nodded and said, The ghost flood is not afraid of fire, nor is it afraid of frost, nor is it afraid of light and heat. Even the fire of gods cannot evaporate the ghost flood. The only way is to enter the ghost flood and kill all the flying fishes one sword at a time, leaving not a single one behind. That way, the ghost flood will dissolve on its own and become a spiritual force between heaven and earth. Kill them all? That's difficult. Lin Muyu thought of the scene just now and couldn't help but feel a chill down her spine. What are the flying godly fish's teeth made of? It can actually bite through divine walls. If I remember correctly, only divine artifacts can bite through divine walls, right? Qin Yin found it difficult to accept the fact that her defenses had been broken. Shi Yan chuckled, Don't underestimate the flying fishes. They are naturally demonic creatures, and they are the bane of the god race. Every flying fish has a lifespan of at least 10,000 years. They are all living fossils. Their teeth have been cultivated over a long period of time, and their sharpness is not below that of a divine artifact. However, there is one thing that puzzles me. She suddenly muttered to herself and did not continue speaking. What are you confused about? Lin Muyu asked. Shi Yan looked up at him and said, Generally speaking, it's very difficult to form a ghost flood, and most of the flying fishes also sink into the sea to dominate. But the ghost flood on land is really too strange. Someone must be deliberately raising it. Domesticated? Lin Muyu was slightly startled. Someone deliberately raised these flying fishes and ghost flood? That's right. Otherwise, there's no other explanation. The ghost flood needs an extremely strong supply of spiritual energy to sustain itself. The spiritual energy in the deep sea is very strong, and it's the birthplace of the natural ghost flood. But there's no such place on land. Then, who is raising the ghost flood and the flying fishes, and what's their purpose? Lin Muyu was also confused. At this moment, Fuzhu's voice came from the depths of the cave. Master, come and take a look here, there's a situation. Lin Muyu raised the Xianyuan sword and entered the cave under the light of the divine sword. She saw Fuzhu circling around a rock that was about the height of a person. The rock was very strange, its shape seemed to be man-made. It stood in the middle of the cave in the shape of a cone. The surface of the rock was glowing faintly. Fuzhu was about to reach out to touch it, but Lin Muyu frowned and said, Don't touch it. But Fuzhu was stunned. Lin Muyu smiled faintly and raised her hand to pick up a stone from the ground. Then, she used the sharp end to touch the strange stone. Suddenly, sparks flew everywhere. The strange stone's surface was like a saw, and it quickly ground the stone in Lin Muyu's hand into powder. My God! Fuzhu frowned. He was a mythological beast that had lived for tens of thousands of years, but now, in front of Lin Muyu, Shi Yan, and the others, he was like a rookie who had just made his debut. This Star Spirit Valley was really a disgrace. Lin Muyu said softly, There are countless small wind blades on the surface of this stone. The eyes can't see them, but they are enough to kill people. Fuzhu, if you continue to be so careless, you might die one day. Fuzhu grinned but did not say anything. Xian laughed. Sister Xian, what are you laughing at? Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were puzzled. Shi Yan covered her mouth and smiled faintly. I think I finally understand the principle behind those wind saws. Oh? What do you mean? Shi Yan pointed at the stone in front of her. Here, this is the reason for the wind saws. This kind of stone is very rare even in the divine realm. Xin, do you remember the radiant primordial stone of the Western divine realm? It's a rare stone that can greatly improve one's cultivation. Yes, I remember. Primordial stones are the most primal crystallization of the power of laws, and also one of the strongest powers. The stone in front of us is not an ordinary stone, but a wind-type primordial stone. It contains the purest wind energy, and it is precisely because of the existence of this primordial stone that the wind saws are born in the air. As she spoke, Shi Yan narrowed her beautiful eyes. Moreover, there's more than one primordial stone here. Just one can't create hundreds of wind saws in the air in an instant. None of us should touch this primordial stone to avoid alerting the enemy. Alerting the enemy? What do you mean? Fu Zhu was confused. Shi Yan raised her brows. Isn't it obvious? Someone is guarding this stellar spirit valley, and this primordial stone is one of his weapons. Perhaps those flying fishes are also his slaves. If we touch this primordial stone without permission, he will soon discover it. When he comes with the flying fishes, how are we going to defend ourselves? Lin Muyu agreed deeply, but she still stared at the primordial stone for a long time. This thing is really good. Sister Xian, if we solve the problem and I want this stone again, what should we do? It's simple. Shi Yan smiled slightly. I think the person guarding the Star Spirit Valley must know how to remove the defensive wind blades on the surface of the windstones. He also knows how to activate the defensive power of the windstones. We just need to catch this person. Then what do we do now? Tang Xiaoxi asked. Lin Muyu also smiled. It's simple. We'll hide in the cave and wait for the guardian to walk into the trap. That's the best way. If we go out, we'll fall into their trap. Yes, that's the best way. Shi Yan pointed behind her. Find a suitable hiding place and wait for the guardian to come. You cut off the rock wall to block the cave entrance. Are you sure it's okay? We'll alert the enemy if we do that. There's no other way. If we don't block the entrance, Gui Hong will definitely rush in and will die even faster. Shi Yan was speechless. Interesting. I can't remember how many years it's been since I've encountered such a desperate situation. But it's quite fun. If the guardian comes in later, we'll have to subdue him immediately. Otherwise, it'll ruin everything. Yes. Everyone hid behind the rock and widened their eyes to look at the dark cave. After who knew how long, just when Lin Muyu was about to fall asleep, there was suddenly a clanking sound from outside the cave. Shi Yan, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi were stunned. Was that the sound of chiseling? The rock blocking the cave was at most half a meter thick. Even a Heaven Realm expert could shatter it with one palm. Why did this guardian want to chisel it open? They were full of doubts, but it was not suitable for them to say it out loud. Everyone remained silent. After chiseling for a full 2 hours, the cave door finally opened with a rumble. But what followed was a clanking sound. It sounded like iron hitting the stone floor. Lin Muyu squinted her eyes and looked over, only to see a white-haired old man walking in with a metal walking stick in his hand. His face was full of wrinkles, and he did not look like a godly state expert at all. There was a green crystal lantern hanging on the walking stick, and he walked in with a swaying posture. Was this the guardian? Isn't this a little too ridiculous? Lin Muyu even suspected that she could kill him with a sneeze. But just when Lin Muyu was in a frenzy of doubt, the familiar sound of water rang again. It was the flying fishes riding on the Gui Hong. The Gui Hong surged into the cave and danced around. Qin Yin and Shi Yan widened their eyes and did not dare to say a word. The old man stopped and looked at the flying fishes dotingly. He chuckled and said, "My babies, are you hungry? Come, Grandpa will give you a delicious meal." As he spoke, he took off the crystal lamp on his walking stick and tilted it. A drop of blue liquid fell into the ghost flood with a whoosh. The entire ghost flood began to tremble violently, and the flying fish inside began to squeak as if they were very happy. Just as Xian had expected, someone was raising these flying fish. That drop of blue liquid should be the crystallization of Reiki, which could provide the real nutrients for the flying fish to survive. Lin Muyu turned around and saw the shock in Qin Yin and Xian's eyes. At this moment, the old man walked into the cave with his walking stick and said, "Come, let this old man see who dares to barge into the secret room without permission. Flying fish demons, go in and search the entire cave. Kill them." The flying fish deity obeyed the order and immediately flew into the cave with its ghost flood. It instantly split into a dozen or so ghost floods and started searching the cave. If the flying spirit fish were to find him, he would be in deep trouble. If he did not act decisively, he would only suffer. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi had already raised their divine power and were planning to break through the void to grab the old man. However, they could not move at all. An invisible force had sealed off the area around them, and breaking through the void had become a dead end. Lin Muyu was the only one who let out a low growl. The power of the 4th level of the shapeless elephant skyrocketed, instantly breaking through the barrier. Her figure flashed, and in the next moment, she had already appeared behind the old man. She pressed the Xianyuan sword against his back and said calmly, "Don't move, or I'll pierce your heart." The old man trembled. You can actually break through this old man's barrier?" Chapter 1022. You'd better behave. Lin Muyu gently pushed her arm forward, and the Xianyuan sword's blade immediately pierced through the old man's robe and pressed tightly against his skin. A sharp pain quickly spread through his body. The old man was still leaning on his crutch, but he did not seem very nervous. He lowered his head and said softly, "I'm just an old man who was left behind in this forgotten place to guard the sacred site." "Guard the sacred site?" Shi Yen floated over with a teasing smile on her face. How could an old man guarding the sacred site have the ability to rear so many flying fishes? Moreover, what's with this wind primordial stone? You know about the wind primordial stone? The old man frowned at Shi Yen. "Who are you people?" Fu Zhu raised his eyebrows. "We are the masters of this place. This young hero is the leader of the Dragon League, and also the master of Dragon City. The entire Raging Fire region is under our control. Your Astral Valley is in the Raging Fire region, so it is also under our control." "The Dragon League? The Raging Fire region?" The old man smiled and said, "The fighting in the secular world has nothing to do with this old man. If you want to fight for hegemony in this forgotten land, go ahead. Why do you have to come here to cause trouble?" Lin Muyu walked around the old man and stopped in front of him. Her sword was still pressed against his chest as she said, "A few of my subordinates went missing in the Star Spirit Valley, so I tracked them all the way here and found their skeletons. 3 of them were probably eaten by the flying fish. Your flying fish ate my people. Do you still want to stay out of this?" They asked for it." The old man's face turned cold. "The sacred site is a holy place left behind by the ancient gods. It contains the purest spiritual energy between heaven and earth. Your people want to steal the wind primordial stone, so they will die. It's not me who wants to kill them, it's the ancient gods who want to kill them." "Who are the ancient gods you're talking about?" Lin Muyu asked. The old man immediately cupped his hands towards the sky. His expression was filled with almost fanatical worship as he said, "Pengdu the Great, Nuwa the Great, Fuxi the Great, the Zhu Rong clan, and so on. They have all lived here before. This sacred relic is a relic of the gods. No one is allowed to desecrate it." Qin Yin opened her eyes of flame and asked, "So, this primordial wind stone is a killing weapon left by the ancient deities?" The old man did not dare to face the blazing eyes of the blazing light. He quickly lowered his head and said, "Who are you? Why do you have such terrifying eyes?" "Don't ask me who I am. Let me ask you first. Is it the will of the ancient gods to create wind saws to kill people?" The old man frowned. "It's not. But for tens of thousands of years, Countless people have tried to steal the sacred relic in Star Spirit Valley. I have no cultivation at all. I can only rely on the primordial wind stone and Gui Hong to fight against them. You're killing people here and you're still speaking with conviction? Lin Muyu looked at him coldly and said, "You're old. Give me a reason not to kill you. Otherwise, this Xianyuan sword will end your life." Xianyuan sword. The old man lowered his head to look at the golden image that appeared on the blade. It was the image of all things in the world. It was the image of farming, fishing, and the reproduction of all things. The righteous aura contained in this divine sword could be said to be the supreme of the three realms. How could he not recognize it? He could not help but become excited. It's a relic left behind by Emperor Fuxi the Great. It's a treasure of Emperor Fuxi the Great. You bastard, you must have stolen this Xianyuan sword from Star Spirit Valley thousands of years ago. It originally belonged to the sacred relic. The Xianyuan sword originally belonged to the sacred relic? Lin Muyu frowned. But I really didn't steal it. I only came to the ancient mystery realm a year ago. Nonsense, the mystery realm has long been forgotten by the world. No one can find the spatial entrance to the mystery realm, and no one can come in. The old man was excited. It seemed that he had been guarding here all this time and did not know about Xiao's havoc in the 64 domains. Shi Yan smiled faintly. "Old man, you said that this is a sacred relic that holds the relics of the gods. If that's the case, why don't you take us to see these relics? Don't even think about it." The old man spat. "You thieves, don't even think about stealing the treasures of the sacred relic." Lin Muyu's arm lightly pushed forward. Instantly, the Xianyuan sword pierced through the old man's skin. Blood flowed down the blade. "If you die, no one will guard the sacred relic and we can do whatever we want." Lin Muyu looked at him coldly. At the same time, she glanced at the ghost flood behind her. The flying fishes seemed to be waiting for orders. She smiled. "Old man, don't try to use the flying fishes to attack us. I can kill you 10 times over before they attack." How could the old man not know that Lin Muyu's cultivation was not something he could match? He gritted his teeth. After a while, he said, "I can take you to see the treasures of the sacred relic, but each of you can only take one item. You must agree to my request. Otherwise, I will bring the secrets of the sacred relic to the underworld even if I die." Shi Yan was pleased. "All right, we agree to your condition. Then let's go." The old man turned around and walked out step by step with the support of his walking stick. Lin Muyu followed closely behind with the Xianyuan sword in hand, ready to take any necessary measures at any time. Amidst the sound of flowing water, the school of flying fishes did not seem to abandon them. They followed at a distance that was neither too close nor too far. The ghost flood flowed through the air like ribbons. The flying fishes widened their eyes and bared their teeth at Lin Muyu and the others. They wanted nothing more than to feast on them. Before they knew it, it was already late at night. The starry Spirit Valley was silent. Specks of starlight appeared in the distant forest like fireflies dancing in the air. The entire valley was very quiet, making one feel at peace. Clang, clang, clang. With every step the old man took, his walking stick would hit a rock. But this was unavoidable. Lin Muyu frowned. Intentionally or unintentionally, she counted the number of times the old man's walking stick hit the ground. At the 99th time, the sound suddenly stopped. The old man stood in front of the stone wall under the mountain rock. He faintly sighed and said, "Ancestral gods, forgive me for my incompetence. I failed to protect the treasures in the divine relic." As he spoke, he took a deep breath and said in a loud voice, "Majestic mountain god, please grant me the way." After he finished speaking, a part of the stone wall in front of him suddenly protruded. It was 8 fist-sized stones, and the old man reached out and pressed one of them. A rumbling sound rang out, and then he pressed another one. After all 8 stones were pressed down in a certain order, the stone wall returned to normal. However, accompanied by a rumbling sound, the huge rock in front of him suddenly moved, and a huge cave appeared. At the same time, a light blue curtain appeared in the air, as if some kind of boundary had been touched. The old man stepped into the cave. With a fierce look in his eyes, he shouted in a low voice, "The great mystery of heaven, help me eliminate the demon." Boom! A rock fell from above, smashing straight toward Lin Muyu's head. At the same time, a cold light shot out from the cave, separating Lin Muyu from the old man. "Be careful!" Qin Yin shouted. Lin Muyu's reaction was extremely fast. She slid back to avoid the giant rock. At the same time, she waved the Xianyuan sword continuously, blocking all the mechanical arrows. But this was not the end. The rock under her feet suddenly collapsed. Lin Muyu hurriedly used her divine power to fly up, her face full of shock. In the blink of an eye, the hundreds of meters of rock under everyone's feet had turned into black holes. What kind of mechanical technique could have such an ability? Who is he? Qin Yin gritted her teeth. He must have deliberately lured us here and then tried to kill us. That's obvious. Lin Muyu raised her sword. Everyone be careful. The flying fish is about to arrive. Yes. Everyone nodded. At this time, the cave's door slowly opened again. Golden sealing runes condensed between the door and Lin Muyu's group, forming an indestructible barrier. The old man sat on a black chair. The chair moved with the wind and actually flew in the air. "Since you covet the sacred relic, then you deserve to die." The old man's gaze was fixed on the Xianyuan sword. "Heaven's will ordered me to guard the Xianyuan sword again. It must be Heaven's will that allowed you to return the Xianyuan sword to me." Lin Muyu looked at him from afar and said, "You keep saying that you're guarding the sacred remains and that it's the will of the heavens, but we haven't killed a single person in Stellar Spirit Valley, yet you've already killed a few of my subordinates. Shut up immediately. There's no such thing as a hypocrite in this world." The old man was slightly startled. He didn't think that Lin Muyu would say that about him. But he still laughed. "You little thieves want to steal the sacred relic treasure of Star Spirit Valley with your martial arts cultivation. You deserve to die here. There's no point in talking anymore. Take my attack." Lin Muyu frowned and stood in the air, waiting for the old man to make his move. But this old man didn't have any powerful cultivation. What kind of move could he make? Or a mechanism? At this time, the ground suddenly rumbled and shook like an earthquake. A scorching flame power rose from the ground. Shi Yan immediately said nervously, "Don't underestimate the enemy. This old man is definitely not that simple." Lin Muyu nodded. She began to channel her divine power into the Xianyuan sword. No matter what it was, she would destroy it with one strike. At this moment, a gigantic creature slowly rose from the ground. It was a gigantic flying dragon, its body covered in black scales that gleamed with a glossy sheen. It had a huge head and a pair of crimson eyes stared fixedly at Lin Muyu. It waved its sharp claws slowly, as though it was riding on clouds amidst the flames. However, Lin Muyu could see traces of friction between the primordial divine dragon's steel arms and body. She could even see screw-shaped wedges. This was a mechanical beast. Chapter 1023. Lin Muyu could not help but look at the old man in the distance. His brows were tightly knitted together. Who exactly was this old man? His cultivation level was not high, but his mastery of the mechanism technique was unparalleled. But before Lin Muyu had any time to think, the mechanical dragon swooped down and opened its mouth to spit out a ball of fire. Lin Muyu quickly opened his left palm and condensed the dragon blood battle shield in front of him. Boom! The flames swept across and burned Lin Muyu's arm. Damn, the flames spat out by the mechanical dragon were definitely not ordinary flames. They were comparable to Tang Xiaoxi's flame of the Master God. Her battle boots stepped on the air, creating two beautiful blue ripples. Lin Muyu had already used the momentum to teleport away from her original position. It was the same for this huge mechanical dragon. The Xianyuan sword shone brightly, and with the profound energy of the chaos of the lives, it struck directly at the mechanical dragon's weak spot. But before the sword landed, invisible blades suddenly appeared in the air and pounced at Lin Muyu. It was the wind saw. Lin Muyu turned pale with fright and quickly flipped his body in the air. At the same time, He saw that the scales at the mechanical dragon's weak spot were flipped up, and there were holes underneath. The wind saw's energy shot out from these holes. The wind saw was very sharp, and Lin Muyu was not willing to use the divine wall to challenge it. Behind him, the flying fish of the divine ghost and spirit squeaked. Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, Shi Yan, and Fuzhu were fighting the flying fish of the divine ghost and spirit again. But it couldn't last long, and they had to get rid of this mechanical dragon as soon as possible. Lin Muyu leaped up and slashed down dozens of sword chi in the air. Since he couldn't fight in close combat, he could only attack from afar. What he did not expect was for the mechanical dragon to roar and wave its claws, condensing a layer of flame chi around its body, blocking Lin Muyu's sword aura with a ping 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 sound. So powerful? Lin Muyu was shocked again, but she didn't say anything. She raised her left arm, and a blazing purple sun suddenly condensed. She used the star scripture's Howren strike and shouted, "Destroy!" The mechanical dragon brandished its sharp claws and pounced over, instantly colliding with the purple sun. Boom! The night was as bright as day. The flames around the mechanical dragon's body were all destroyed by the purple sun. However, the temperature of the purple sun seemed to be slightly lower. It was actually unable to melt the dragon's head. It only burned the dragon into a fiery red color, as if it was a ferocious fire dragon. Good heavens, the metal used to create the mechanical dragon was definitely not ordinary metal. It could withstand extremely high temperatures. Inside the cave, the old man watched the battle, but his face was getting uglier and uglier. He had underestimated Lin Muyu and the others' strength. He did not expect them to be able to fight the mechanical dragon, and their speed was even fast enough to dodge the wind saw's multiple attacks. However, Lin Muyu couldn't say it. He didn't even dare to stay in the same position for more than a second. There were dozens of wind saws chasing after him. The mechanical dragon's attack was silent. Wind saws could fly out from every part of its body at any time to kill the opponent. This mechanical dragon was simply a killing machine, unlike ordinary mechanical beasts. Swoosh! Once again approaching the body of the mechanical dragon, the Xianyuan sword's light suddenly rose. Three glorious misfortune of all beings. With a loud bang, a dragon claw was forcefully chopped off by Lin Muyu. The price was that more than a dozen wind saws struck Lin Muyu's body at the same time. Immediately, the divine wall shone brightly and faintly showed signs of cracking. Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He hurriedly dodged. The wind saws were chasing after him as if he was locked on by a missile. An expert in the God the Arch realm couldn't even withstand a single blow from the mechanical dragon. No wonder no one dared to enter the forbidden area of Starry Spirit Valley for so many years. As Lin Muyu dodged, he raised his left hand and chanted, "All things in the world, listen to my command." Buzz! The mountain range in the distance suddenly trembled. In the next moment, the force of 1,000 caddies fell from the sky on the body of the mechanical dragon. Boom! The huge body of the mechanical dragon trembled. At the same time, the wind saws chasing behind Lin Muyu decreased a lot. He immediately drew an arc in the sky and pounced again with his sword raised high. Facing this mechanical dragon, even Lin Muyu had to go all out. The stars in the sky fell one after another. He instantly launched a fierce attack of the 7 glorious stars transformation. Roar! The mechanical dragon seemed to have sensed a fatal threat. He raised his head and looked at the millions of stars in the sky. "Stop!" The old man in the stone wall suddenly roared and said, "Enough, young hero, you have won. Flying fishes, ghostly deity, all of you stop fighting. We have lost." The old man really didn't want the mechanical dragon that he had painstakingly created to be destroyed. He could feel the destructive power contained in Lin Muyu's attack. "Is that so?" Lin Muyu suddenly shook his arm. Instantly, the millions of stars returned to heaven and earth like fireflies scattered on the ground. He looked straight at the old man and said, "Can you tell us the truth now?" The old man trembled and said, "Before I tell you the truth, you must first answer a question of mine." Behind Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, and Xian also stopped fighting. They were all exhausted. The ghostly deity, flying fishes, and Ghost Hong were too difficult to deal with. The old man's murky eyes looked at Lin Muyu and said, "Who taught you the domain-type mental cultivation method?" Domain-type mental cultivation method? Yes, all things in heaven and earth listen to my command. That's the art of formless elephant. Lin Muyu said in surprise, "How did you know about it?" Art of formless elephant, the old man shuddered. That's the secret art of great Emperor Fuxi. How did you learn it? Lin Muyu smiled brightly and rested the Xian Yuan sword on his shoulder, because I'm Fuxi's only disciple. The art of formless elephant was directly taught to me by him from the sky beyond heaven. Fuxi's disciple? The old man was shocked. You're Fuxi's disciple? How could this be fake? Lin Muyu opened his palm and with a low roar, strands of divine power appeared and turned into layers of golden vines. They were filled with vitality. This was a strand of power that originated from Fuxi's divine power and had never been shown to others. The old man really believed it this time. He murmured, "It's really the divine power of great Emperor Fuxi? You're really Fuxi's disciple." As he said this, he stumbled and fell from the chair and said, "The great Emperor's servant, Mo Clan's Luo Tianji greets you, immortal. I've waited a long time for immortal and the gods' heavenly decree for many years." Lin Muyu floated down and said, "You're really from the Mo clan. No wonder you have such remarkable power. Elder, please don't kneel first. It's too much for me. Put away your remarkable power first. It's already a mess here." Yes, Luo Tianji quickly twisted the handle of the chair. Immediately, the mechanical dragon swayed and sank into the ground. Then, a rumbling sound came from underground. Pieces of intact rocks protruded out, and the ground returned to its original state. It was simply a wonderful work of art. Qin Yin and Shi Yan looked at each other and smiled. Lin Muyu's identity as Fuxi's successor was quite useful. Luo Tianji then invited everyone into the sacred relic. The lamps in the secret chamber lit up one after another, making it as bright as day. At the same time, everyone saw the treasures in the sacred relic, as well as the multiple protective mechanisms around each treasure. Although Luo Tianji's cultivation level was not high, he was well versed in the power of the laws of heaven and earth. The mechanisms he designed were enough to kill a god-emperor expert. "Senior, what's going on with that mechanical dragon? Why is it able to attack with the wind saw?" Lin Muyu could not help but ask. Luo Tianji smiled faintly and said, "It's because of the wind element raw stone. This dragon is called the Blame Dragon. I installed a wind element raw stone and a fire element raw stone in its body. Therefore, it can breathe fire and gather wind on its own. It's omnipotent." For thousands of years, countless god-state experts have died under the claws of the Blame Dragon. However, there has never been a powerful expert like the Exalted Immortal who could threaten the life of the Blame Dragon. Don't call me Exalted Immortal. My name is Lin Muyu. Moreover, I'm just a junior. No, seniority cannot be confused. Luo Tianji cupped his fists and said, "I once studied under Exalted Immortal Ji Jing. Exalted Immortal Ji Jing also learned the art of life and death from Emperor Fuxi. Therefore, according to seniority, I have to call you martial uncle, but senior?" Lin Muyu was really not used to it. Qin Yin giggled and said, "Brother Yu, don't make things difficult for him. Just call me martial uncle. It's just a title." Lin Muyu was speechless and said, "All right then. Senior, you can call me whatever you want. Quick, tell me what's going on with this Star Spirit Valley." Luo Tianji nodded and said, "Martial uncle, you might not know this, but the ancient mystery land is not a plane that originally existed. It's just a crack in the sky that was torn open during the Battle of the Gods. However, countless ancient gods have fallen in the ancient mystery land. Most of their belongings have been lost. Some of them have been preserved and sealed here. That's why it's called the Sacred Relic. Before Immortal Nuwa and Emperor Fuxi left, they set up the Sacred Relic and gave me eternal life. They ordered me to guard this place forever and wait for the Fated One. It seems like Martial Uncle is the Fated One. But Senior, You still haven't told me what's going on with the sacred relic? Don't get too excited. Luo Tianji couldn't help but laugh and said, there are 12 giant wind origin stones buried in the sacred relic. That's why they formed the wind saw in the ancient mystery land. It's used to restrict the lost gods and serve as a warning. Other than these 12 giant wind origin stones, there are also 24 medium-sized wind origin stones. The one inside the bewitching dragon is one of them. As for Gui Hong and the flying fishes, I met them by chance. That's why I nurtured them with the essence of heaven and earth to protect the sacred relic. It's indeed very effective. Even we almost died under the sharp teeth of these flying fishes, Xian said. Luo Tianji couldn't help but laugh awkwardly and said, please don't blame me, immortal Xian. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.